watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. I got fire and passion. Fire and what I carry on my shoulders will show in stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. No.
as that top team. They've also got a game in hand up against Unique as well, so they pretty much are a solidified top spot team. Late in life, they've not had the best time of it. You know, they've been very back and forth. They still seem to be a pretty good team, but it's kind of one win, one loss, one win, one loss. They haven't been able to string a couple together in a while, so it's going to be really interesting to see if they're able to put another win on the board. They won, you know, yesterday. They did well against Rosette. If they can win another one, maybe that can be the beginning of an actual streak for them.
And this matchup is interesting for many a reason. We've seen Rich Gang's top side, which I want to bring up here before the game, and just champion ocean it up for the season so far, with the top laner only repeating one champion, being Renekton. Everything else, unique pick time after time. And
Yeah.
that's sort of a thing where, when you're lazy in life, how do you deal with that sort of variety?
I mean, it's really, really tricky, right? It's just the level of champions that are being played at this point. It feels like there's kind of nothing that you can actually do up against typical on this one. Just a champion after champion after champion. And it's not consistent in terms of what's being picked either. It's not like, oh, there's a ton of champions, but it's just tank after tank after tank, or it's all variations of the Fiora Gwen. You know, they're just going to fight you. No, it's all sorts of things. There's plenty of the more aggressive pickups in the Gwen, but then you've got things like the Vayne, the Rumble, and then you do even have the Cassante. So you're not pigeonholed sort of into anything whatsoever, and that makes it incredibly tricky to try to play against a champion like this. I think maybe you need to ban away a couple of those top priority picks. The Renekton specifically has looked really good, and then you just have to deal with the fact that you really don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Lazy in Life, though, they have also shown quite a bit of variety themselves, with Pibble bringing out the Yasuo for the first time. No, we've known him to be more of a caster player, so bringing this sort of a spicy pick paired up with the Ziggs down the bot side, they're kind of flexing themselves into the meta game.
Yeah, I mean, it's very surprising to see them pivot into going more meta, but at the same time, we've been on this patch for a while at this point. I think we'll be going on to the next patch relatively soon, but for now, we've been on this one for quite a long time. Teams are really figuring out what's good and what they like to play on it, and I think that this adaptation into a bit more of a standard composition is a bit of a show towards how variable they've been. You know, they haven't been able to be consistent, and there's a reason that the best picks are the best picks, and maybe moving towards that will give them that level of consistency that they've really been looking for.
Yeah. And the thing about being still on this patch is when you're looking for consistency, sadly we found the solution to it. It's called Corki and Tristana.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those two at the moment are just disgustingly strong. I think the Tristana more than the Corki in that it gives you a little bit more. The extra level of mobility and aggression that you can get out of a Tristana gives you a little bit more, but still, if you get one or the other, you're going to be more than happy. It's pretty much a every time ban. Every single time that you're on red side, you have to get rid of it, otherwise you're going to have a very bad time. And anytime that we do see it slip through into the actual picks, it's pretty much always being first picked. It's so strong at the moment. Warmogs is also incredibly strong, so that's brought a lot of the tank supports, tanky top laners into play. We kind of know what's up with this patch, but occasionally people pull things completely wild out, and the fact that the Zyra jungle isn't wild at this point is very surprising.
Yep. Well, let's see if they are going to wild out. We are ready to draft, and it should be on going. Already first picks coming through as the bans go. We don't see either Corki or Tristana banned, instead focusing way on the top and the jungle positions for Lazy in Life. And the Israel has been a mainstay of the ride, picking that away, and it is a flex between the mid and 83 position.
Yeah, I mean, alongside Lelouch, the Kai'Sa sort of can play either of those roles. I really think we will end seeing kind of Kai'Sa in the bottom lane because there are such good aggressive supports down there. The moment Carol comes around, Leo, obviously the youngster ban, that would be the perfect pairing. You always have a good time with those champions, but Kai'Sa is kind of the best pickup for Messi down the bottom lane. And again, with that first pick, Ezreal, he's always first pickable at the moment. The second that he gets his first item completed, he's going to be super safe. Same kind of thing with the Ari, you can sit quite far back in these team fights, you don't want to be aggressive. And if you do pair it with a nut, again, it will be very aggressive supports. You don't need to worry about this. It's very unlikely to try and isolate. You can go elsewhere. Interesting to see chilling.
And the Lucian Kai'Sa first application on the side is Kurosh has thrown out in a couple of times.
Good at it.
We like
course, but we are seeing another one of those AP junglers taking over. The Lydia is pretty strong at the moment. I can understand why you want to get rid of that. Feels like the Zyra is kind of the remaining Premier.
While
Rich Gang is Rich Gang, they are there to cook a live. As expected, aggressive supports being banned now that provide that easy engage / follow up to the catch out, while Lazy is down the AP jungle. Kind of trying to pigeonhole Slice into the Zyra, but I still think that the Amumu is looking quite good here.
I think part of the issue with Zyra is that...
What?
Okay, fine. If these next two picks are ranked, then who cares? Because resist anyway, like, that's... You said they're like, that's definitely cooking. I mean... I saw one of these not that long ago, but it was like 6 minutes or so, C1, and things like Dante ruined the one, and you're not going to be able to... It's pretty tricky to one-shot a ninja as well. Very mobile.
So, the thing about this concept is that it's a tunnel. It's very good if one of the premier but now that there's the copy as well, there are so many dashes on Ring Gang, and they are going to have a painful time trying to reach and carry the lazy. They are going to survive and try and take down the DPS of Rich Gang, who are very, very
I think in this game, you just go all in for the early game, right? The later you get into this game, the more that the Poppy is unlocked to get across the rest of the map, and so get into your lane, join up with wherever this Karthus is, yeah, that just doesn't make things good. Early on, though, when the Poppy is more in the bot lane, not really around with you the whole time, it's a lot easier to actually make this composition work, and RG just have to get going early. You know, if this Kha'Zix falls behind, it's kind of useless. If the Kai'Sa or the Lucian fall behind, they don't do very well for themselves. They don't have a lot of late game endurance, particularly not in the same way that I feel you do as Lazy. This Lazy composition's a lot more standard from what the meta is.
The one thing about the late game, Mirai on the Kai'Sa is able to provide some shots where the Kai'Sa will eventually out. You kind of have to play around it, and when it comes to hard engaging with the Lazy Life team composition, while they have the tools, it's not going to be that easy to reach Rich Gang. So if, and that's a big if they are able to survive the mid game, they again have a chance to come back in the later stages of the game. But that Poppy is going to be super annoying to deal with.
I mean, yeah, it feels like kind of one of the best possible picks that could have come into this composition. There's a ton of dashes, there's a ton of things that you can stop with that W. At the same time, though, because it is in the support role, it's a little bit easier to play around. It's not going to be as tanky, it doesn't have the same level of massive gold income. As I'm saying that, though, of course, there is this thing called a Warmogs at the moment, which is just... It's so strong. It's kind of full build if you could rush it immediately. You pair that with the Zeeks, and you're kind of just taking all of the damage whenever you ult. You're just doing so much for your team, and that is relatively easy to get to as a support. It's kind of why those engaged supports are so strong at the moment. It really puts a bit of a question mark up when somebody doesn't go straight for the Warmogs, because it's just so strong, isn't it, Carvus?
Yeah, it is. And the engaged supports, even if the Warmogs wasn't a thing at the moment, the meta favors having buttons that you can just press at the enemy and try to win off of a single catch. The carries at the moment are just so damn strong. You can win the game in the later stages off of a single catch where you just kind of snowball the fight and the push over the enemy. Well, again, I'm a bit worried in how this early game will form due to the aggression that Poppy is able to put out with the Ezreal, but we'll see.
I mean, if you can get yourself into the later stages of this game, Poppy Ezreal is a great combo that can do a lot, and because the Ezreal is so strong at that one item, obviously 1 to 2 items is where he can really begin to pop off, it's definitely a lane you can try play around. I just feel like this Xin Zhao has a lot of weight on his shoulders to make sure this early game goes well, because the second that you let this Kha'Zix pop off, this game kind of goes wrong.
Well, let's see if it goes wrong or not, because we are ready for game 1 of today. Rich Gang trying to extend their lead over the rest of the league while Lazy in Life trying to get back into the groove, now currently in the 3rd position in the standings.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
We are facing a black screen for the moment. Coming back to us. Sometimes you get Nocturnalted.
Oh boy, not in this game. I think I would have been a lot less surprised if Nocturne had have come out in this game rather than the Kha'Zix. I want to see that Kha'Zix get a kill within the first 5 minutes, otherwise I'm having big questions already, right?
I mean, that's the thing. In a tunnel, this Kha'Zix is a really good pick into the Xin Zhao. Once you get level 6, you're never going to land 3 auto attacks at Kha'Zix. He's just going to turn invisible, weave Qs, and beat you in the DPS race. And Xin Zhao will be on the back foot.
Yeah.
However, when we go into the 2v2 or 3v3s,
Yeah.
the situation may change a little bit.
It really does. You kind of pick the Xin Zhao for those, get into the middle of a team fight. At this point, right, you just heal so much throughout your build, throughout just innately being Xin Zhao, that you can sit in the middle of these team fights way better than a Kha'Zix is. We've all seen it, right? A Kha'Zix who, the game gets to 25-30 minutes, and he kind of just sat on the outskirts of a fight. Maybe somebody makes a mistake, goes and wards up the jungle when they really shouldn't have and gets picked off, but if you all stay together, really can't get involved in the team fight, doesn't give you as much as a Xin Zhao can, but it does stop a lot of what a Xin Zhao wants to do early, right? The Xin Zhao loves to be able to win that 1v1. It's kind of the best bit about his champion kit early on. When you all of a sudden don't do that, it changes a lot of what you're actually trying to do as this champion, right? Often the Xin Zhao wants to go for aggressive invades because you're going to win that 1v1. Why not? You can go steal away camps. That's not something that you're going to be able to do in this specific matchup.
And overall, the Lazy Life lanes may have a hard time securing priority early on. The Ezreal Poppy, again, I want to emphasize this. Ezreal, while usually plays very safe, if Poppy ever gets a good headbutt onto the Kaiser, a couple of Mystic shots and the E and W proc, that's already half HP gone. And the Nautilus is not going to be able to save anyone with the W from Poppy just preventing the hooks from ever reaching their target.
It just feels like the Poppy was kind of the perfect Uno reverse card in this game, right? After you see everything that's been drafted, yeah, Poppy, all the way. You can slam that one down. It works so well in this composition, and I'm really fascinated to see how it gets piloted, because from the support position, you really can move around the map a lot more easily than you are if you're locked into top lane, locked into the jungle. As, unfortunately, it seems like we're still not going to get any game feed. Back to us.
We solved the technical difficulties. It's the game is going to be a bit wild in the early game when you think about it. But okay, I'm trying to figure out something to talk about here. What else do we have today? Hold on.
I mean, we've got some pretty interesting games later on as well.
We have Garden vs Chaos after this, which should be another even matchup. I think Garden is the one team tied with Lazy in Life.
Yes.
And Chaos has been showing us some interesting stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by this matchup, more for the Chaos side. I feel like Garden, they're not too out of the box a lot of the time. Not saying they're not an interesting team, they absolutely are interesting to watch, but they don't pull out so much wacky stuff. Whereas Chaos, I feel like they really are trying to embody their name. They just randomly strike out and take wins off of people. I'm like, I don't feel like you should have won that one. I'm not sure how you managed to pick that one up occasionally. And, obviously they just came off of a win up against 42. 42, not terrible team. They're also someone we're getting to see later on today. It's just fascinating to see if they're going to be able to, again, be consistent. It feels like they're the other side, potentially, of this Lazy in Life look, where, the favor goes to Lazy in Life a little bit more often than it goes over to Chaos. But if they could just string a couple more wins together, they're right on the bubble of getting into the playoffs. Not super far out, they're not too away like Rosette are. So, they still have a lot to play for, and I'm very hopeful they're going to be able to turn things around a bit.
Yeah. those are the games to be seen later today. We're still, again, sorry for the technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a Carvis returning stream if it wasn't something happening all of a sudden, but sometimes the client just decides to do this. But as you said, the playoffs are approaching very fast, and
Yeah.
this is the time where everything has to be pulled off. I think we're going to be on patch 14.4 for the rest of next. No, how many weeks is it before?
We've not got that many left. We've got
Two
the rest
weeks,
of this
no?
week and then the rest of the next 2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think we will get. No, it'll
we're
be on
staying. I think.
Yeah, it's on 14.13 for the rest of the regular season, and then we'll go to 14.14 for the playoffs, if I'm not entirely.
I think
Oh.
that sounds about right. Yeah.
Are we ready?
Ooh.
Oh.
Yes.
And we have feed. Let's go. Lazy Life versus Rich Gang. Level 1. 5-pointer start.
Let's go. I mean, it would be very NLC to throw us straight into a 5-man invade up against 5 people. They're all brawling, throwing spells at each other. You know, no rest once we get right into this game. But no, everything gonna be nice and standard. I'm very interested to see where this Kazik starts, right? You kind of start anywhere, has enough AoE that you can start on the chickens if that's the clear you want to do. Could also start just onto the red buff in a very standard look of the clear. I do expect the pathing to lead you down towards the bottom lane. I mean, you have some level of gank setup in the mid and in the top, but it's nowhere near as good as any lane that has a Nautilus in it. So trying to go bot lane, trying to punish this Ezreal Poppy early, because if the Poppy's behind, sure, she's still always going to have that shield, but it does stop a lot of what you want to do.
There's also the possibility that if Slice decides to path towards the bot side, Milkshake can, if he wants to skip a couple of camps and go for a blue side invade, if Tidebringer and Sim are able to get those aggressive trades going, with the Poppy having the Hail of Blades,
Yeah.
volatility is high in this lane.
Yeah, it's much higher than it could potentially be. You know, you can always go for the aftershock, you know, where you're just an unkillable wall as the Poppy, or maybe you even want to go a little bit speedier in your runes. That's always a possibility too, but no, instead going for the Hail of Blades, you do a shocking amount of damage. I mean, obviously Poppy, mainly a jungle top laner, so has quite high base stats, something that you really like to be able to use as a support, and you can punish a Nautilus who jumps in. If the Nautilus jumps in when you are in a good spot to be able to stop what he wants to do, the Nautilus kind of finds himself in no man's land very quickly, and that can, you know, become a turn.
Well, Sim finds himself hooked up by Gunshot and loses half the HP. That's pretty much guaranteed now that Rich Gang will be holding the priority for now. And the junglers don't seem to be looking for anything aggressive, just full clear. The standard of today. Who cares about aggressive plays anyway?
Yeah, why would we get aggressive when instead we could get as many camps as possible? I don't necessarily disagree. I think since both are just going for this full clear, it doesn't really disadvantage either. And the lane that you're really looking to go towards right here as Slice is pushing in massively, so you're never really going to get a gank off into that lane either. With that bot lane trade, that's exactly what you want to do as Kanska, because once that steadfast presence does come through for the Poppy, all of a sudden, that engage doesn't work anymore, so you've got to punish during the early levels when you are at your biggest advantage in this lane.
We'll see if the advantage has a swing in a couple of minutes, with both the junglers now finishing their clears. The Scuttler should be the target. Karosh secures mid lane priority, wards everything up, even pops the vision cone. Sees the Xin Zhao take the recall, so perfect information for Rich Gang.
Yep.
And Slice may be even able to secure a double scuttle here.
If he can, that's going to be huge. You want to get yourself as far ahead as early as possible, as we've been saying, and Milkshake, getting that recall off in full vision isn't ideal. It does look like instead Slice is just going to go back. I mean, you could still end up with a bit of a brawl around this Scuttle Crab. I would imagine if you go straight towards it, it's likely going to be taken nice and quickly by Milkshake. But you do find this Xin Zhao in the river. Like we've been saying, you do a ton of damage early on as this Kha'Zix, and you could potentially look for a solo kill. It is interesting, the two longswords compared to the pickaxe right here. I think that does give Slice a little bit of an advantage in this 1v1.
Not a major one, but an advantage nonetheless. But neither jungler will be finding each other just yet. Very calm early game. And I even think that this heavily favors lazy. They just are able to get the Xante items. They're able to get the Ninja out of their early game safely. Ari first item Spike is incredible. And the Israel Poppy, as you already said in champions like Tidebringer, will be having a field day once that first item is finished.
It will be. It's... Oh, hang on. This...
Oh!
Strata's gonna take it.
Interesting.
He's gonna take a tower shot.
Typical still has the not phase rush, the airy, so the auto attack will do quite a bit of damage, gets the stun, and one last final auto attack. Won't get the kill, but that certainly will. First blood over to the Kennen. The Xante from Strato feeling overconfident, trying to get some poke in underneath the tower.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a range versus melee matchup. You're going to get the push in a lot of these situations because you can't step up as the Kennen, but you could also poke very effectively. I thought Strato was going to die because he was just underneath tower range, was playing that one quite well, but was still getting way over aggressive. Blew a couple of the spells as well without actually hitting onto Typical. Once you miss a couple of those Intofo strikes, you're just going to get taken down. Typical gets to walk him down, both lose their flashes, and beyond that, Strato also has to TP back into this lane. Typical's going to be able to walk it straight back, not miss any XP or any minions on this one. I don't think he misses any at all. And that's just going to be huge for this lane. Sure, you're down by a decent amount of CS right now, but that should even up pretty quickly once this wave is taken.
By the way, some tech that I love from Typical. First item, we have a Haunting Guys in the inventory, so a Leandry will be on its way. People have been starting to realize Leandry is a pretty good item. Like, if you've seen any Udyr build that recently, he will melt everyone, Zac as well. And Kennen, one of those characters that has realized, hey, I can actually utilize this item pretty well.
This could turn into a 4v3.
They're definitely trying. Sim won't find his way in. Slice taking a bunch of hits from the dragon, trying to burst down the Kha'Zix. Pibble is here with a ult, flashes forward, Milkshake's the first one to die. Mid-eye, very low, but Kurosh is auto-attacking away. Tidebringer flashing over the wall, finding the Kaisa in the back lines, but Kurosh and Concha way too healthy to fight against. Can Pibble sidestep, doesn't have the movement speed from Foxfire, gets the catch, and another kill for the mid laner.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge amount of kills going into the inventory of both mid laners, to be fair, but 3 kills, no deaths for Kurosh. Means he's also going to get to push this wave in. No teleport for the Ahri. This is going to be devastating for this lane state. And it looked like it was going to be a good play initially from Lazy. They got the 4 members down to the play a lot quicker on, but it was the fact that Slice survived just a little bit longer than they expected. It drew Milkshake in a little bit too far. It made Pibble have to go further than he would have wanted to as well. And it just kept people out of position for this Lucian to clean up on. 3 kills is just huge. We can see on the recall getting well towards that first item.
Here we go again. Slice is there to cover for his top laner, but can he win against Milkshake? The level 6s are there for both junglers, but they know that the 1 versus 1 will quickly go bad if a Kennen joins into the fight. And the objective goes untaken. Even with Concha rotating over, I think they are just a little bit too low on HP.
It's a little bit risky to try to go for this one. I mean, getting the grubs right now would be huge. Ezreal Ahri has a much easier time of taking towers because of the range advantage than a Lucian Kai'Sa does. Obviously, if the Lucian Kai'Sa can get on top of it, as watch this banana go a little bit wide. I wonder if that was potentially a misclick. Oh, hang on.
Slice has been caught out, and now Strato a little bit out of position. Pops the slicing maelstrom, and good damage all out, gets him out of there for now, but the mini stuns from Typical still coming in. Ganesha just needs to get 1 CC for the kill to be secure, but with the mini wave coming in, no hook to be landed there. And it's just a kill traded over, no jungler. The bot side is still up, and they really don't want to lose out on that extra CS. Understandably, Slice hits over the opposite side of the map, while mid lane, Kurosh starting to flex his power a bit.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this solution is in a very strong position. We've seen Kurosh basically win Rich Gang a couple of their games on this pick. A little while ago, he played it. He said that he hadn't played it in quite a while, but it used to be a pocket pick of his. Now, it seems like he's really unlocked all of that by time.
Cancelled auto attack. I saw that Mirai. Still gets the kill, but
it was okay, and also by Typical. We've had a couple of kills go down right here. I'm more surprised by the death onto Typical, even though it was a gank. I think Typical had sort of outpushed his vision, didn't really know that there was a potential for Milkshake getting involved. I'm not particularly surprised that this Kaiser is just going to win a 1v1 at this point up against the Ezreal.
Sly is starting up the dragon when his mid laner has recall without teleport. Instantly hops onto Sim. Pibble will be there, gets the enemy jungler down once again. Carnage is stuck in no man's land, trying to get that one last auto attack. Even the Ignite is enough to trade the kill over, but that's a double for Pibble and an overextension, I feel, from Rich Gang.
Yeah, Slice making that play when you have your Lucian going back to base. I understand why Kurosh wants to go back to base. Look at that, has got that fully completed Kraken Slayer in the inventory already. It's also going to be a static dump for Mirai, so this bot side of the map is incredibly strong, but you actually need these champions on the map to be able to make these plays happen. I get why Slice tried to go for Sim. They're not particularly tanky at the moment, but it wasn't going to be a good play when you don't have any support around you. Even Kazuka was on the other side of the Dragon Pit in enemy territory. It took a while for this Nautilus to get there. You managed to get the trade back at least, so that does stem the bleeding a little bit, but a couple of potentially soppy plays out of Rich Gang, and I think this is the way this team play, right? They aren't the most clean, collected team. They love to brawl, they love to get into these long fights, but they just team fight so well that sometimes they come out on top of fights that you feel like they have no right to be winning.
The thing I'm worried about is for this Kha'Zix being 0 and 3 so far, starting to fall behind the rest of the map.
I mean, the Sons of the Sky is completed.
Yeah.
Ouch.
On some characters, if you fall behind the rest of the map, even though you would be like equal with the enemy jungler, Kha'Zix needs to be ahead to be deleting people, while Xin Zhao is still able to provide utility. And you see it here, they're in no position to contest this invade from Lazy.
No, they're really not. At this point, you're just having to concede a lot of your jungle, and it's just a couple of potentially questionable plays out of Slice that is putting him behind, and I wonder if that might end up costing Rich Gang here. If they'd have had a more standard jungler, this wouldn't be such an issue, right? Even on things like the Vi, like the Wukong, who I always talk about just being not particularly useful to your team if you fall behind, they give you more than the Kha'Zix cause. Kha'Zix really doesn't provide any sort of team utility.
Being a bit careful. But as you said, with Slice providing no utility, going for the Profane Hydra to get his clear speed up, getting himself back into the game, Lazy is free to go for the dragon, just take it away. And the mid game is the point where Rich Gang can lose this game even with the 3-0 Lucian. They need to somehow stem the bleeding and just try to get a patch or two with the Ahri not joining it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about Rich Gang like they're behind right now. They are 2,000 gold in the lead. It just doesn't feel like they're in that good a position because that lead is so focused right now around a couple of specific lanes. It's the mid lane and a little bit the top lane where you're going to have that gold advantage. And it really just feels like they needed to get that gold advantage onto the Kha'Zix to keep him relevant. And Lucian's going to hit like a truck anyway. So is a Kennen, but that's not going to be the same of a Kha'Zix. We'll have to see though, as right now potentially looking to hunt onto Tidebringer. Tidebringer knows something's up, is going to back off, but means you're going to be conceding a lot of tower plates over to this Kai'Sa. The Kai'Sa in a strong position is going to be great.
The fight is a bit awkward to take though, with Ezreal and Poppy just bouncing in and out of vision, trying to get any poke to stick onto Slice. They're just perfectly happy with melting down tower with the 3 grabs they pick up.
Yeah, just keep taking the tower gold. It's nice and easy. It doesn't run away from you or fight back like the champion gold does, and you're going to be happy with picking that one up. You can see that now we do have that completed Trinity Force for Tidebringer, so they are going to be in a very strong position. That's kind of the point at which the Ezreal looks so strong. It's not really the same for the Kai'Sa. She really needs that second dagger.
Double teleport channel down to the bottom side. Pibble gets there first, and now they just retreat away from Courage. They get one kill. Frontal on the flank, though. He's here as well. Getting the shutdown would be incredibly
Pibble, what?
forward. Misses the charm and almost dies for it. Very risky from Lazy, but they come out ahead.
Yeah, they managed to pick up a kill for themselves, and you sort of waste the teleporter out of Kurosh. He's going to be able to pick up this wave at least, and so is Slice in the mid lane, but actually Kurosh might potentially get dove here. Kurosh does a ton of damage. You need to be careful to not over-aggress right now. but it is a 2v1 without turret plating. This play isn't as devastating for Rich Gang as it could have been, but still, that's a great proactive play out of Lazy, and they've managed to put the gold lead pretty much back to 1,000.
Milkshake, in typical a piece of his mind, has to flash away with Chris's God.
Oh,
what
no.
are you doing, my friend? Tries to greed for the
Wait, he
kill,
lives?
able to survive due to Strato not having the all-out, won't be dealing enough damage just yet. But this game, just constant aggression, as Kanche takes a little bit of a break, Slice gets to think about what he's done.
Hey, yo, Carvis? What are we watching? I know that you're meant to ask me that question. I'm going to break it down nice and easy for you, but right now I am watching what's happening, and this is not a, oh, this is a champion skill difference. This is a, what are you doing difference. Fibble, yeah, just going to pick up that kill. I don't know why Slice decided to all in right now with just the Profane Hydra. You don't win that up against the Ari in any universe, and that's now a 5-1 Ari all of a sudden when there was such an advantage for this Lucian.
Rich Gang, still figuring out the issues, but all of a sudden the entire map goes crazy. You see the flash play from Pibble down on the bot side, missing the flash charm, almost loses his life rate. Then top side, Kennen greening a little bit typical, going for the very typical top side play. I want to kill, I must kill, and almost dies for it as well. We should have 2 more kills on the table, but somehow they survive.
I don't know how people got away with that. Like,
sometimes the playmaking gods are on your side. They respect the attempt and let you get away, but not the cleanest game so far from either team.
No, whenever I watch a kill like that go over or not go over, it reminds me of when I have a solo queue teammate who's terrible and we win, and I'm like, you didn't deserve that LP. There's no reason that you should have won that game right now. It's the small version of that, where it's like, you should not have gotten away with that play. Still, they do. It means there are a couple of kills not going over, which does give a couple of advantages. And I think this is a really interesting point for us to have taken a quick pause, because the state of the map right now is kind of wild, right? We're only 15 minutes in. The gold advantage is just very slightly in Rich Gang's favor, and yet, despite that, it kind of feels like there's a big advantage right now for Lazy.
At least when it comes to power spikes. You have a bunch of champions that are just so damn powerful at the first item mark. Ari having the Malignance, you already mentioned the Trinity Force from Ezreal, and Xin Zhao with Sundered Sky, just able to do what Xinja does but better. As mentioned, he provides utility no matter how far behind he is. Sure, he may be a bit squishy, but against the mostly ranged team composition from Rich Gang, taking down the Xinja may prove to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Sundered Sky is keeping just a ton of champions relevant in the meta right now. It's such a strong item, and it means you can just sit in the backline, heal constantly, live forever. It works so well alongside this Xin Zhao kit. I have to see if he can make it work as well as possible, right? Get into the backline, really cause a lot of disruption onto this Lucian and Kai'Sa, because if you let a Lucian or a Kai'Sa free hit, especially a Kai'Sa later on into the game, it's devastating to your chances of actually being able to win. If you can deal with the Kai'Sa, keep her running, keep her on her toes, it makes it much easier to actually play out these fights, because you do have enough tanky champions to try to actually sit forward and absorb a lot of the damage. I mean, right now, Kansuke is kind of the only bit of frontline that you have for Rich Gang. That's not the case for Lazy. They've got plenty of different options to try play around.
And the Dragon is where they are headed, giving over the Herald for now, as they are aware of the poor Dragon movement, hoping for a good soul. It should be a good one, considering that Cloud is already gone. Rich Gang, of course, trading for the money and fact they, with the Herald Pop, couldn't even get the real money tower, that being the inner one, as Lazy are just not in a position to defend this fast enough. Tidebringer stuck down on the bottom of the map. They want to take the fort, or Punch has been called out, but with the Aftershock supplies a ton of the damage, he in right into the middle of everyone, gets dragged out by the Cassante, but the damage is already done. Kuros getting picked off, 3-on-2 now, but Stratos is so damn tanky, will be dying eventually. A Rich Gang comes out with 3 kills 4-2, but Tidebringer this entire time has been shoving in mid.
Yeah, shoving in mid, getting a ton of damage onto this tower. Also, through that two-shot barrage. Cool. Do you think he can get? Okay, no. Through that two-shot barrage through the fight as well, and ended up either picking up the kill or helping it be secured to start off that fight. Was actually really helpful to that fight and getting a lot of pressure for Lazy as well. Dolo, Rich Gang, with all of those kills going over, you could see the power of this Kai'Sa was just shredding through people in that team fight. Also the Kennen, without that ulti, without that all out of Strato, it would have been even more devastating to Lazy in life if you'd have just left that ulting Kennen in the middle of the fight. Doesn't end up happening. Tybalt is about to walk into danger though, doesn't have the ult.
No flash either. They instead turn it around onto Mirai. Gets blown up. Slice finally picks up a shutdown of his own, but the fight's still going. Milkshake and Strato trying to 2-on-2 against the world. Kurosh gets taken down now against the Cassandra and Poppy. I'm not sure if Rich Gang has the damage. Tidebringer joins the fight as well. And Rich Gang, full retreat, will be missing the ultimate, but Slice should be fast enough to get away. Tidebringer with the flash over the wall. Has nothing to say, but nothing to say, nothing to do but kill. Let's go with that. I don't know where I was going with that. Regardless, a bunch of kills going over, and Rich Gang, again, they try to go for the confident play, but Lazy punishes.
Yeah, indeed, it is a good catch to try to get on top of an Ahri who doesn't have that ulti. You know, she's in a pretty weak position right there, and you do have a lot of damage, but Mirai just gets full engaged upon out of Milkshake, and the 1-for-1 is massive. Lazy also got Tidebringer around, who wasn't involved in that previous fight. Part of the reason why Rich Gang were able to pick up as much as they did in that one, because this Ezreal right now is in such a strong position. 2 items completed. Once you have the Trinity Force, you're in a good spot. Now that you've got the second one, wow, you're just going to be able to shred through whatever is in front of you. He's hitting like an absolute truck, and it just makes these team fights so tricky to play around. Rich Gang really fully indexed into an early game composition, weren't able to get that massive early game lead through, and they're now paying the price.
Kancha finding someone he probably didn't expect to find, trying to land the hook tied there. And another skirmish. Let's have it. Sim will already fall. They did expend the flash and the slicing maelstrom from typical though. Huge team fight cooldowns gone from the side of Rich Gang, but they don't seem to care. Killer instinct in Mirai once more, and Tidebringer losing so much HP. One last Void Seeker able to pick up the kill, and 2 quick ones for Rich Gang.
Yeah, I mean, once you have to use the Arcane Shift away and already use the flash in the previous fight to try pick yourself up a kill, just going to end up going down right there, and that's going to unlock this mid lane tower over to Rich Gang. That puts them back in a good spot in this game. It buys them a little bit of space, a little bit of time, right? They now need to just get more items onto this Kennen specifically. Only 1 item on the Kennen, and already that Splicing Maelstrom is doing so much damage. That's kind of your team fight win condition right here, because they're looking for one under this tower.
Already down half HP. Sim trying to peel everyone away, but Rich Gang just unrelenting aggression. Go forward. Strato with the all out, able to get the support, but they don't really care. They already get 2 towers for this, a bunch of kills, and there's the enemy jungler is stuck topside. He hasn't even started to recall. They clear the way, but Pibble trying to get the peel going.
Pibble.
Look at the damage! Tidebringer and Pibble peel off the entire team of Rich Gang. And Milkshake is, wait, you guys don't need me? He's just going to continue pushing.
And that Ezreal ult nearly managed to hit right there onto the recalling Typical. If Typical gets his recall stopped, you lose that top lane inhibitor tower. That's more than enough time to be able to pick that one up. And what looked like another really good player, Rich Gang, turns on its head almost immediately. Pibble, Tidebringer, they play that one basically to perfection. They also use Strato to great effect. So tanky at the moment. Now got that Iceborne Gauntlet completed as well, so it's gonna take a really long time to try to kill. And this should also translate into a Drake. Obviously, the Baron is up and available, and both these teams have a relatively quick Baron take, but I don't think it's fast enough that you could just try to steal it away. I think we're gonna see a pretty big 5v5 in a minute. Right now, Lazy trying to set themselves up for this team fight, because you need the vision to stop a mass Typical ult. If you manage to get the Slicing Maelstrom onto 4 members in the backline, this fight goes horribly wrong for Lazy. They need this vision set up to be able to avoid that and play this fight out nice and slowly with all of the poke that they have.
Getting a kill onto Pibble at this point with 10 Dark Seal stacks and the Sonya. if they can land the CC chain and just delete the Ahri,
Yeah.
lazy Ahri problem, and they have the tools to go for that. But as you mentioned, the Ken is the key part that they play against, and they've set up nice vision around the Baron area and are aware of pretty much anywhere where Rich can get.
Yeah, Rich can walk in, try to take away a little bit of this vision, but the damage has been done. They really can't try for a fight in this situation. Obviously, Typical isn't in the area to begin with, so it's unlikely they would have all in, but then again, it's Rich Gang. I've seen them go for those fights. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, they just love to pull this team. They're definitely exciting, but I think Lazy, win or lose right now, can take a lot apart from this game. They have pushed RG pretty much to their limits throughout the course of this game and have just put on a very impressive performance. Obviously, I would love to see them manage to close this one out, keep themselves in the race for that first position, because it's by no means locked up at this point for Rich Gang. If they start losing a couple of games, they will very quickly slide out of that first position that they've only just claimed for themselves.
More weeks still to be played. Ezreal ultimate used to check the Baron area. Not really sure why. They have full vision around it, except for the pit itself. There was a pink snuck there by Rich Gang. And we're into the Baron dance.
Yeah.
As is tradition, but with the Kai'Sa having 3 items, free W becomes a part of the game now. Mirai can outrange almost the entirety of Lazy.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good when your composition has an Ezreal and an Ahri to get outranged for the poke to be this strong. You see, it's just... Oh, wait.
Slice! Almost dead. There's a flank coming in from Further. All out. Shoot. Heal. Typical away. Slicing Maelstrom only comes from 4.
Oh,
the
wow.
damage. The DPS from Rich Gang is too much. Frontline melts. And now the Baron is the target. Pibble with no ultimate.
Nope. Strike, though.
They can try to take the Baron, but with both of the carries still alive, they're in a precarious position. Aware of what comes in, so getting a Mystic Shot, it just goes over the wall. Confident play from Tidebringer, but are they too far? Gurroch's Lucian just too strong. It takes down the AD carry, but as you said, no smite and a bit of an HP deficit to deal with. This Baron is a risky take. They're thinking about it, but now with the late recalls, Pibble is there to cancel them.
I mean, if that hook lands, maybe you do have the ult back on the Ahri, so it would have been a bit of a risky play to go for. I do think it was the right decision out of Rich Gang to just pull away from that fight, don't go all in onto it, but it's kind of one of the perfect fights that they could have really found for themselves. Typical didn't manage to get onto as many members as he would have liked, but it was enough to sort of stun the front line and allow Forest to open up with that culling, treading through people. So is Mirai. And that fight works out incredibly well for them. If they don't lose Slice to kick it off, then they get the Baron very easily in that situation. Unfortunately, Slice was the target, does get taken out by the Cassante into the backline. And if you keep losing this jungler, it just makes it so hard to try to actually go for this Baron. And it feels like Slice is just a magnet for death at this point, right? 7 deaths on the game, and it's just been such a tricky one to try to play out this... Oh, boy.
Oh.
Okay. Strato, what can you do?
He is in big trouble. Even if he speaks, he will not be getting away from this, except with his all-out, makes his way back into the river. He has a bunch of dashes, but here's but Sim finds him, peels away the Kai'Sa. Couple more auto attacks, just blocks the skill shots, and somehow, someway makes it out alive. Then the fight is going to continue. Already, ton of resources expend from Rich Gang. They find the Kai'Sa, but Tidebringer is still doing work. Kurash,
oh my god, Kurash!
This is one of the most spread fights I have seen in a long time, but Kurash does not care. He knows how strong he is, gets the double kill. Kanshe may fall on the other side of the river, but it ends up being a 3-4-4 and no objectives going either side.
This is just the typical RG game. They're all bloodbaths, they're all brawls, and I have seen this tape before, where the game feels kind of lost, where the other team has the better scaling, but it doesn't matter. Kurash has this Lucian, he's so dang strong on it, was just melting through people. Hits the last shot of the culling to manage to kill Tidebringer, and Tidebringer looked like he was about to take over that fight, but as soon as the culling lands, he just gets shredded down, and I think Kurash actually still wants to go for this one.
Teleporting channel though. Lazy converge onto the objective. This is the soul, and probably the worst one out of all of them that they could have gotten after the first 2. Kept the Drake, of course, while especially Casante likes to have it. It's not the win condition you are really looking for.
I mean, if you can pick them all up, it's going to be good, but it's a Chemtech. It's not going to be the most oppressive to try to play against. Bringing up the Elder in, 5 and a bit minutes time is always risky. There's always a situation where you actually try to give over that Drake, delay the Elder from coming online. Your composition isn't a strong position, but, you're still at the point where Rich Gang can try to fight back onto this one. Oh, no.
Bit too far up. Will get deleted over the wall, and now Rich Gang and find themselves in full retreat. Pibble committing hard onto typical. Spirit Rush now on cooldown as they head over to the Baron area, trying to force the hand from the number 1 team. Another charm goes wide, and Milkshake's just buying time for the rest of Lazy to find positioning. Hex Flash from Poppy, but Rich Gang just buying time so damn well. They've already gotten... They almost have reached... Yeah, Kansh's going to be back, and they just lose nothing over this.
Yeah, the fact that they don't lose the Baron off of that pick feels kind of criminal right now. Lazy just didn't want to force it. You could get why getting caught into a pit when there is a Lucian or a Kennen on the other team. Yeah, it doesn't feel good, but still, they needed to have forced something there. Otherwise, it just turned into a pick.
Well, thankfully Spirit Rush has no cooldown anymore after level 16.
And Slice doesn't do any damage, really. Like, Slice barely tickles onto a lot of these carries at this point. It feels pretty bad. Needs a full rotation to be able to take maybe half health. Really needs friends to be able to help him pick up the kills there. But still, you end up with all of those ultis blown, all of that fighting and posturing, and it does just turn into a kill onto the support. Everybody's going to be back into the game right now. I think we should take a look at some of these key summoner spells, right? Because Mirai doesn't have the flash right now. Neither does Korosh, neither does Typical. That's a lot of those main summoner spells gone. They can be used both aggressively or defensively, and Rich Gang seem to be liking to use them quite aggressively at the moment. Not having those flashes is going to hurt, whereas Tidebringer, Pibble, they've all got their flashes available, as well as being hypermobile champions anyway. You've got to feel like you're in a bit of a better position coming into this team fight as Lazy.
This jungle is not where Rich Gang wants to go into with no vision. A ton of walls to play with for both Trato and Sim. So, we're back into this equal game position where the Baron dance is still on the table, but with vision everywhere. Rich Gang just can't really approach without Lazy making a move into some direction.
Yeah, it feels like they really rely on some of these big ultis to be able to land right here out of Rich Gang to make these team fights work. And then the same thing can be said for Lazy, although a charm would do it to be able to initiate this fight. Interesting position to try to all in onto the Casante on the bottom side. I think there was a move out of Kenshka to go, maybe I could look down there, doesn't decide to. I think a full commit down there would lose you the Baron all the way. And this is the interesting thing about a Baron dance, is you just have to keep all of your strongest members sat in the mid lane until you can pull the trigger and do something else. And it just means that these side lanes end up sort of free roaming for these side lane carries. And if you can get a good push going, it can draw members away. Maybe it can open you up to try to go for a team fight. Although so far, the push is very slow out of Casante right now. Not really drawing pressure for a while until he gets to that team tower.
Yeah, Casante one of those chances while he can be annoying on a side lane. Oh, teleport panel top side. They found Korosh. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Rich Gang
No.
committing a little bit too hard with that vision on the top side of the map, and that's a bit of a worse member to lose than the Kanshi. Main DPS now gone, 11 kills worth of gold, not participating in the upcoming dragon fight, and they just know there is no way they're winning a fight, instead committing towards the mid lane, trying to get whatever they can. If they get the inhibitor tower, it's great. If they get the inhibitor, even better. But this is a consolation prize.
Risky with all of the TPs coming back, the recalls coming back through, and yeah, they're just going to be able to get this inhibitor tower. Sure, you managed to crack the base first in this game. Like you said, with 11 kills worth of gold gone, that's a 4-item Lucian, you're just missing from that team fight. It's a great engage. We were watching Strato down on the bottom side, just slowly pushing out this wave, but a great teleport to go and support the buddies. It was an over push out of Kurosh, had been sent into that top lane. Lucian's usually okay at side laning, but had just way over-aggressed. And losing out on Lucian was always going to be devastating. You are going to be back and available, recalls coming through, few more items picked up, but this is going to be an Elder fight in just 40 seconds time. Can't lose this one. He's just dead again. Slice is gone.
Yep. Bug got slapped by the swat. No. Swatted? Is that how it works? I don't know how it... Like, Finnish is way more convenient when it happens. You can just say the word and it means something.
Look, English is nothing but inconvenient, right? That's the point of the language, it feels like.
I don't know. In Finland, we have these, like, fly swat things that are electrified. I don't know if we have those in England.
I have seen them about. They're not everywhere.
And we just say that you swat. They are swatters that you swat with. And
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a tangent. Elder Dragon's up. Rick Gang.
Feels like Lazy are kind of swatting RG at the moment. I gotta be honest. They've been chased around the map right now, and I feel like we're gonna have to put a lot onto this pickup of the carnage, right? It feels like that's where a lot of the problems right now for RG lie.
Indeed so. Problems that RG are having include not having the calling to wave clear anymore with, because the wave is approaching down from the bot side of the map. And with Typical there, on the top side, he does not have any wards to teleport to, except for the one lone ward near the bot inhibitor towers. Strato, so tanky, he does not care. He's just going to all out Kurosh, and they want to dive. They smell the end of the game. Already 2 carries gone, and Rich Gang goes down in a blaze of glory. Typical tries to get at least 1 kill. Aggressive play this time does not pay off, as the teleport will be coming in from Pibble. Just gets the one last recall. The minions aren't dying anytime soon. No cooldowns to play with. Rich Gang just trying for dear life to defend, but instead they end up patting at Lazy's KDA as they move up in standings, untying the game. Eventually.
They're gonna, there we go, close that one out. Typical just about gonna survive this one, not gonna be 30 kills to Lazy. They're not gonna care about that one. What a performance out of Lazy. And it felt like the composition just was way stronger, right? It had way more options to play around. You needed that Kha'Zix to pop off early. It didn't, and at that point, although there was still a gold lead, although there were still good things happening, you know, Kurosh was strong and everything like that, there was kind of an impeding sense of doom coming out of Rich Gang, and we got to see that as the game went later and later, and the Kha'Zix just never found his footing.
Yep, sometimes that is how composition building works. You pick a champion that does not exactly fit the situation, even though in a vacuum it is very good against the enemy jungler. In the game itself, did not work out. But we will go into a short break. I'm not sure if we're rocking interviews. If we are, we will have an interview. If not, J-Real will be joining you for the next game.
Shoulders, we're showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. shoulders. I'm showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. Shoulders, we're showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength.
Hello, and we are back. I've swapped in for Carvis. He had to go do some important Twitch rival stuff, I believe. I don't know if I can actually leak that. But either way, you didn't hear what I just said. We're back into the game. This time, it is time for match number 2. GG taking on Chaos. And we saw Garden Gaming yesterday beat Fourth Wall. really, really clinical, I have to say, Bloxer, right? They came in, they had their strategy, they played the macro. Okay, yeah, a couple of blunders in the mid game where there's, well, I wouldn't even say blunders, a couple slip ups in the mid game where they did give over a little bit of power, but in general, there was no stopping Garden Gaming. I think they really, really, really had their eyes on the prize, but also the way that they came at it so systematically was a very strong showing, and exactly what I wanted to see from these teams going towards that playoffs as we are going to go into draft. Let's bring that one up. I want to see teams getting more clinical, right? I love the scrappy fighting. I love lazy in life, right? We all know that. But at the same time, consistency is key when it comes to playoffs, and so far GG are the ones that are showing it the most for me, as we are going to see a couple of bans coming through there. The Lydia often taken away from Loki, the Rumble as well, Ivan and Zyra being banned because you know what, Taxfig slyly is a tree.
Yeah, I mean, he just loves to play that one. It's basically been banned the whole time, right? I haven't actually seen the Ivan be allowed onto any of our Ivan players at the moment. It feels like it must be strong right now, and our players must be good on it, but I personally haven't been allowed to see it. It's very interesting at this point that neither the Forky or the Tristana have hit the ban table. Neither the Brand. Those are a lot of the premier picks that we'll be seeing quite often. Okay, it looks like we're gonna have a little bit of a reset right there, but still, we've not seen a lot of those highest priority picks taken off the board, and there's only 2 left that we hadn't seen so far at that point. You're gonna get one of the best ones on blue side right now.
Yeah, well, you'd hope. You would hope.
Okay, they
Like,
could
that
just
would definitely
pick something
be
random.
like, you never know, but I do think so. I think Tristana, Brand, Lucian. I will say the Tristana for me is less like first pickable. It's like
true.
it's definitely very strong, and maybe people in the comments are going to be atting me like, "Hey, what are you talking about, bro? Like everyone's picking Tristana." Yeah, everyone's picking Tristana, but I feel like Lucian is really good in Tristana and can punish it if you know the matchup well enough. That it gives me a kind of status where I'm like, you know what? Like, actually, it's very much team dependent as to whether I'll first pick the Tristana. However, someone that isn't team dependent is Brand, because Brand is ridiculous right now, okay? We saw him yesterday. We've seen him in multiple leagues. Every time I see Brand, he does well. He just pops off. There isn't really much stopping the damage. And, okay, yeah, he didn't necessarily win in all of the games that we saw him in yesterday. Actually, he may have not won any of the games we saw him in yesterday, but either way, he still had a massive impact.
Yeah, he had a great time either way. Like, what do you mean? Don't you want to just have the most fun available, whether or not you actually end up picking up some of these wins? Yeah, he's so strong. I don't think anybody has a good time against the Brand. And I think the thing with the Brand is that he's so good once you get into those team fights. Sure, he clears very quickly. He can gank, okay. He provides a lot of damage, a little bit of CC setup. But you're kind of just waiting to get into those big, messy team fights around an objective. Drake, Baron, take your pick. And at that point, it doesn't feel like there's anything you can really do about the Brand. You have to kill him before you get into the team fight, because if you let him get there, there's sort of nothing you can do to avoid the fact that you're just going to take half of your health to Brand damage, plus there's everybody else to deal with.
Yeah, it's it's a tough time. You know, it's a ticking time bomb that I guess sets off from level 4. You know, it's a sentiment where I don't think Brand will solo win you the game, but it will always give you that upper advantage in those team fights, right? The Pyroclasm just doing so much damage. It's really hard to avoid. But also, one thing I was talking about yesterday with Tempora was the thing I like about Brand specifically is it's kind of like old Nidalee, where if you play for setup on top side, you can basically just always kill off the enemy top laner. You can set yourself up and your top laner up, and then you can become very strong as a duo unit going into those team fights, which people will be like, hey, J-Roll, you could do that with anyone. Yeah, but Brand does loads of damage to everyone else in the team fight, so it realistically covers you for not having got the bot lane super far ahead as well.
Yeah, it just provides so much extra to you everywhere. It doesn't feel like there's any point at which you're like, dang, the Brand isn't helping us out in this team fight. No, it's gonna be fine whatever happens. And that's kind of the joy of the AP junglers too, is that it just unlocks the map so much. I'm a massive AP jungler enjoyer, although I gotta be honest, I do prefer the Dianas and the Echoes, you know, the more aggressive ones, rather than, hey, I'm just gonna sit in a team fight and blow you up from the backline. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it's what we've got at the moment, and it is really effective. And it's going to be interesting to see what the decision is back the other way, because we've been seeing a lot of AP jungler versus AP jungler. The Karthus still available. Obviously, the Zyra's been taken off the board, although people haven't been having the most success with that. I do wonder if we're going to get that, or you just go all in on the jungle, try to get as aggressive as possible. Or there's always that third option, and there's only one champion, it feels like, in that third option. It's the Sejuani. I'm tanky. I'm just going to help out my team. It's the boring option, but I feel like some of these team compositions could really benefit from just having a stable jungler.
Yeah, no. I think stability is always strong. I personally been playing a lot of Zac, right? But I'm thinking about it, and maybe I'll burn myself again by going back to one of my favorite junglers of all time. Fiddlesticks is actually on the rise.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
14-14. I think we're playing on 14-13, so I don't think it's actually going to affect our players. So we don't need to worry about it just now, but maybe in the future, something to think about. 14-14 has made a bit of a difference to AP junglers, right? Some of the junglers have started to lose a bit. Zyra, Brand, all of those, the normal counterparts. But Fiddle is still very strong. And Fiddlesticks obviously really, really good team fight. However, the difficulty with Fiddle is obviously you do have to kind of compositionalize around it. So it definitely does make it a little bit more tricky to play in some of these 5v5s. But there is a world where I'm thinking that could start taking a bit of priority if you wanted that AP and then have a little bit more setup. And obviously it does well into the team fights. And also can kind of smoke some of these other AP junglers. So you know what? Maybe that's what we're going to be moving into, especially with the priority of like the fact that ADC mids are just perma everywhere. It's maybe one on the cards, but we'll have to obviously see how that one plays out a little bit later. Right now, though, I think that one thing I kind of want to see a little bit more of is a bit of a switch up in the top lane, to be honest, because I feel like we're getting a lot of Casantes. I feel like we're getting quite a few Renekton's, but I've been kind of going around some regions. Right, I was in Old Trigger the other day, and someone played Fiora, and wow, like that was a pretty extreme way to win a game. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it just looks so strong at the moment in a way that I feel like we haven't really been getting to experience from those heavy fight top laners for a while. I have seen a couple of a full engage version of the Renekton rather than the sort of bruiser version we've been seeing, a Darius, something like that, but we haven't really been seeing the Fioras, the Gwens as frequently as we would have really been expecting, with the fact that I think they're in a really good spot, and when you do have that very heavy AP in the jungle, it can unlock your top laner to instead be that sort of AD carry that you can play around. I'd love to see something like the Fiora pulled out right here. I think Aurelia too is in a really nice spot. It's obviously quite tricky to play, but when we get a lot of double AD compositions where you've got, the Tristana, the Ezreal, the Tristana, the Kai'Sa, having something like the Aurelia ult to be able to shut a lot of that down could be really good, and it gives you a lot of backline threat too. Any of those kind of pickups would be fascinating, because you're right. It's really boring. It's really boring in the top lane at the moment. There's so much of the same. I've seen so many Ornn Cassantes recently that I feel like I could play that match out like in my sleep at this point.
Yeah, it's you know what? That's kind of like the interesting thing about League of Legends, and I actually think it's kind of maybe one of the talking points of esports versus sports, which is that like even though yes you get the same matchups a lot of times, I do feel like it's all down to the players at the same time. Like we could see the same matchup time and time again, and I actually want to go back a few seasons, right? We're talking maybe like 3-4 years here, where Ornn Renekton was like the matchup that was happening in topside, right? Not loads has changed, but essentially I would always see it. I would see Renektons picked to Ornn. They would basically just lose, right? It was a slow process where yes, you're not going to like be giving away loads and loads and loads, but it is going to be a whittling down of your chances of winning the game. And unless the rest of your team did something, well, it's not going to really be doing too much. And then, and I'm going to misquote who it was actually.
Okay.
But I think it was, I've completely lost who it was. I want to say it was White Knight. Was White Knight a top laner in the NLC?
I think so, yeah.
But basically he picked it into Ornn. I was like, bro, this is dead, Right. Pentakill. So,
Penta?
You know what? Sometimes it's the player, it's not the pick, but we are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll be getting the draft for this game, one of the players' internet, the seed. So hopefully that's going to be fixed pretty soon.
Shoulders, showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. I got fire and passion. Fire and what I carry on my shoulders, showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. What I carry on my shoulders, showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust, despite how much we lost. You will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. What I carry on my shoulders, I'm showing stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. Fire passion. I got fire passion. Fire passion.
Okay, and we are back. I've realized I haven't got the stream open, which is why I didn't know that we were going back in until right now. But we are here. We're back again. Technical difficulties are affecting all of us, apparently. And realistically, we should be underway this time. So hopefully, draft is coming up. Hopefully, there are no more disconnects either. Otherwise, I do feel like there will be some sort of like clause going on. But we're going to go into draft. No one is going to be getting an immediate forfeit right here, which is important because are in quite a tight situation in the tables. I feel like this would really decimate their potential chances of going forward. But we're back once again. The bans are starting the same as before, Bloxer, as we are here for game number 2 of the NLC Div 2 Friday session.
Everything is fine, everything is working, we are all good right here, and this is the same 4 bands that we'd already seen, but it'd be interesting to see what the next are. We spent a long time talking about the potential of seeing the brand. The Ezreal is also incredibly first pickable at the moment. We saw it get a win previously. I'm surprised to see it taken out by blue side. At the same time, though, if you've got something else you want to be first picking, giving it over and allowing that to be taken along with another one of those premier picks wouldn't be great.
Well, the Tree Man, you know, it's a risk. It's a risk to leave it all open, so you might as well just ban away the brand. Taxfig isn't playing it, you know. He's going to be playing some sort of herbal You know, probably a Maokai is what I'm expecting, but Tristana gonna be first pick, so they don't care about the Lucian. They said, you know what, we're not worried about it, although maybe they're gonna be selected for something more difficult, but no, it is gonna be the Tristana. They have no fear of the Lucian being picked against them. They said, you know what, we can handle it, bring it on.
Yeah, even though you have a relatively bad lane matchup, and the Lucian can do a lot to this Tristana, you're still in a position where the Tristana is so strong, do so much across the whole map, and really unlocks everywhere else to play something more aggressive. If you're opting to play the Lucian particularly, you kind of get locked into this course in that kind of lock situation, and I really don't think the course has the best time. Once you get into these fights, you can do quite a lot. But also, the Tristana can just more pressure on the tower as well, and have a lot more potential jungle. So I like this pickup, even though I think the Corki's still going to be fine. There's a reason that these are kind of top level picks that we've been seeing. I'm surprised to see a Sejuani, especially so early on. I do really like it. I've been seeing the top lane relatively often at the moment. With the state that it is, it's good to kind of have anyone.
Yeah, again, looking for those melee options. Corki going to be picked up. Corki into Tristana, it's just the most standard stuff at the moment. I don't think we really need to discuss it. Level 2. Maybe get a bit of pressure from the Corki, but apart from that, nothing really to be talking about. Taxvic going to be looking in the Karthus there. We talked about AP junglers on the rise. This one fits in perfectly. Requiem always going to be a bit of a difficult one. And it now is on Loki to kind of get that ball rolling, right? Needs to be aggressive in those earlier stages, because if we go to the late game, well, then Taxvic is going to have a massive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. You get later on into the game and you're just nuking people, doing 1,000 damage before a fight even starts. It's an untenable position once you get late enough to play it. So yeah, it does put a lot of pressure onto Loki. And right now, with only a Corki into a Tristana lane, that's not going to be the highest priority to really be able to gank onto. This would certainly unlock a lane that you could try to play around. You are asking for things to be a bit more aggressive. It's not quite as far as the Aurelia or the Fiora that we were talking about, but I think the Camille's still in a really solid spot, and it does a lot to get on top of these very mobile ADCs that we've been seeing. There's a lot of Ezreal's obviously in the start slot, there's a Titan as well. Having the Camille just go flying in the back line, lock them down, stop them, and being able to just sit and do that damage. That's a great way to play out a team.
Yeah, we saw it yesterday as well. It was a thing that was played yesterday by Uzo, and it was able to make a lot of potential. So I do like it. I do like the pick a lot. I think that it was really good for Garden Gaming, and they played appropriately around it. It was into a Cassante, so I do wonder now what they're going to ban away. The Jack's going to be the first one, and then we see the Ezreal taken by Chaos. So they want to keep Garden Gaming locked in.
Yeah, they want to make sure that Garden Gaming can't have that double range that you really struggle to play into quite a lot of the time. When you've got yourself both the Corki and the Ezreal, it's so difficult to play any of these team fights, really. Sure, we'd like the Tristana and the Karthus, but they don't really have that long range potential that you could get out of the Ezreal Corki. It makes playing around these team fights so tricky, and I'm not surprised to see that one taken off of the board. I do wonder if we're going to see another top lane ban right here. Xayah. Now, Xayah's not that strong at the moment, like, at all. I'm very surprised to have the Xayah taken away, especially when you've got the Leona locked in. The Rakan is pretty good at the moment, so sometimes taking the Xayah just to give the Rakan a little bit extra makes sense, but I'm not sure why you'd take this one when the Leona is there already.
Indeed, it's well, to be fair, for Garden Gaming, they did play it yesterday. So they do think the Xayah has a bit of priority, right? So there is maybe a bit of agency where they were like, you know what, we're going to go for the dive. Xayah could potentially counter our whole composition. Maybe let's just not leave that one up, as they then lock in even more forward as Mikkel, they're going to be picked up with the Kaisar. So they are sending it all the way in. They want to play aggressively here. They're not going to be waiting around for the Karthus just to blow them up. So I do wonder if Chaos meet them head to head, aggression with aggression, or if they bring a little bit of kiting that could potentially go a long way.
I feel like the Ezreal could have been pretty good when you see that Kai'Sa picked up. We saw it in the previous game. You could just sit back, play really far away. Volibear, another pick we've not been seeing for a while. Now, you would expect that to be in the jungle unless things are really weird and it's a Karthus mid lane and a Tristana bot. I very much doubt that. And with the Volibear, I mean, he's not in the strongest position right now. A bit of an engage can make the tower dives very effective, very easy with that ulti, and works well enough with the Leona, but he's in a bit of an odd spot, and I don't know how effective he is into the Camille specifically.
There is part of me that thinks maybe Volibear will actually have quite a good time. I don't know loads of matchup specifics, but obviously can trade out pretty well in the early game, could potentially build up a bit of a lead, could maybe be a bit ferocious in those early stages and kind of bully Uzol around and therefore make it hard for any sort of leads built up in the top side. And essentially say to Garden Gaming, you get to pick one lane and that's how you get to play around it. And topside going to be obviously a bit of a difficult one to do for indeed. But right now, Chaos, they've locked in quite a strong composition here. I do actually like their composition quite a lot because it has damage in all the roles. It's got a lot of setup as well. I think they do have ways to play. My thought is, can they be consistent? Because Garden Gaming, one thing they did really, really well yesterday, which I imagine is going to come through again, is they just picked the right tempo for the game. They picked where they wanted to do where they wanted to make fights, and then they just stuck to it. They didn't really give any sort of other openings. They weren't pressing the go button too often, but also they were capitalizing heavily on any mistakes made against them.
Yeah, and Chaos are not the cleanest roster either, right? It's not like Chaos have been having the best time of it. We've been saying they're pretty inconsistent. They take wins occasionally off of people that you don't expect them to grab them off of, and then they'll lose to teams that seem like they are easily worse. It's a very interesting roster, and I think the consistency, the nice clean gameplay for Garden Gaming could be part of why they end up going far, and they've got a very easy to execute composition overall right here. You kind of know who's trying to go for the engages, you're not too surprised by what's happening, and you know, to be fair, I think most of what we've got on the map right now is pretty standard for the current meta, but I do think I like Garden Gaming's composition a little bit more. I'm a bit questionable on both the Ashe and the Volibear, but if they do work, it's very difficult to run away from this composition. There's a ton of slows and stuns that if it gets ahead is going to be incredibly oppressive.
Yeah, long team fights for Chaos, really, really nice. Like Volibear, Ashe, Karthus, they've got the consistent damage to Tristana with the resets as well. So I think that realistically they will work really nicely if they get long drawn out team fights. But as you said, the Ashe is a little bit of a question mark because Camille going in, getting the snipe, quick kill, gets out. Kai'Sa as well, potentially going to be diving on that backline if we get that Hextech ultimatum on a carry. So I do feel like there's a lot of bursts from Garden Gaming that would essentially just eliminate 1 to 2 targets, and then you kind of have to play the game from there if you're Chaos. And obviously they do have a lot of damage. They have 4 different members that can do it. So realistically, they're not going to be super sad if they lose one, but it's like, what are you losing it for? How are the trades going back? Because also you could say, all right, well, they're going to play front to back. Well, Garden Gaming could as well. They have the Sejuani, they have the Corki, they also have the capabilities to kind of just play a normal team fight and then dive when it's best for them.
Exactly, and another wrinkle that the Garden Gaming composition has is if the Camille's in a good spot, that split pushing is unlocked. You can all of a sudden just chuck the Camille into the side lane so easily. There are champions that can try to deal with the Volibear's fine on a side lane. Same thing with the Tristan. You've got to be careful not to step too close though, otherwise you're just going to get jumped on. And so if you're even slightly ahead on this Camille, it makes it that much harder to just get a straight up 5v5 because again, like you said, what are you losing for it? Are you losing a couple towers every time? That's not a position you can keep yourself in for that long before you just don't have a base left. And with the teleport available on this Camille, you know, it's not the super aggressive Ignite version. She can join flank very effectively. A Camille is a great option for just making this game a lot harder for Chaos. They've got a lot more things they're going to have to think about, and they're going to have to try use the pick off of the Ashe or the Leona ults to sort of mitigate that, I think, to even it up into more 4v4 situations, rather than constantly getting pulled around the map chasing the Camille.
Okay, well, let's go. We're already a little bit delayed. Let's get into the game. Let's wait no longer, Bloxer. Let's send this one through. As here we go. Game number 2 of the day. And hopefully, if we're lucky, no more technical difficulties. But Chaos starting out there, going to be moving towards that bot side. I do wonder if they go for a full commit on the invade. Obviously, no hooks available. Ursu should be able to get a stun if they do have Zenith Blade, and they are moving, and Ermin gonna be able to hook a little bit of distance between himself and Ursu, but the flash will take Ursu all the way through. Zenith Blade, though, not able to lock down enough, and Nihui with a ward as well. So Chaos with a proactive play, I do like it. They get a little bit of vision control, trying to spot out where Loki will begin. But I want to see where Taxvig is trying to play, because obviously we got the Karthus, right? Notorious for kind of just playing around the farm, building themselves up, scaling. But you do have some pretty dangerous lanes, like the Ashe and the Leona has a lot of setup, and so does the Volibear. So I do wonder if Taxvig actually says, you know what, maybe we just go a little bit more aggressive. We actually just try and choke out a lot of these lanes and get those early leads.
Yeah, you could potentially try to play around these lanes. The bot lane, the top lane, tons and tons of setup. I mean, mid lane, plenty of damage if you do catch the Corki out of position. Potentially when you don't have any of the jump aways to try to play around for Squidly. And if you can accelerate the map like that, it's a really good spot to be in as tactics, because Loki's going to be forced to respond. Obviously, as I said, Joanna, you'd like to get ganks going early as well, but she does sometimes also just sort of sit, farm, try to play these games out a little bit slower. Forcing her to not be able to do that is a great way to try to make this Sejuani uncomfortable and get them behind. Jora is going to be useful as a Sejuani. Obviously, that ulti is useful no matter if you're incredibly far ahead or incredibly far behind, but if you are far ahead as a Karthus, it just changes the way that you have to play around these team fights. You could never go in to a 2v2 or 1v1 and think, hey, I can escape on a sliver of health. Once the Karthus has that level 6, you really don't have that option, and the more gold that Taxvig has, the more that changes the calculation these players are having to make in their heads.
Yeah, and I really like the sentiment from Garden Gaming to play to that top side, right? Not only is getting Uzo ahead in this matchup going to be absolutely massive if Garden Gaming can do it, but also setting up for the route towards Grubs, because we talked about the split push potential. If you get those Grubs, it locks it up even harder, and it could force Chaos into a bit of a tricky situation if you pick up those early 3 that maybe they have to contest you on the second set.
Yeah, if you are being forced to go contest on the second set, giving over all 6, never going to be a fun time, especially not with some of these compositions right here. If you can get all 6 onto the Tristana, obviously that seems like the strongest possible option, but there's no slouches on either team for taking these objectives. And then if you do take that first set, you can also fully just concede the second set. It really opens up your options. Getting that first set is often incredibly important in just allowing you to not be pulled around the back. I think this is a lot of what these junglers are going to be looking towards, is having the freedom to go where they need to, rather than being pulled around by their opponents. Taxvig is in the area. I mean, the wave is pretty pushed up, but I guess could go for a little bit of pressure. Try force Mikkel and Ermin back.
Yeah, no flash on Ermin, so potentially there's a world where they could lock down and do enough damage, but I think the Karthus is just saying, you know what, it's not going to be worth it. Unless they went for an engage, we're not going to find anything. And on the top side, I think it's the same narrative for Uzol, right? Slowly pushing this wave back in means that Nihui is not under any sort of threat unless they went for a really crazy dive, but I think against the Volibear, it's a little too risky.
Yeah, the Volibear always has that point and click stun available to him. It makes it usually a pretty bad decision to try to dive him early on, and the Camille really doesn't need to. Going to be perfectly happy with having pushed that wave in. They go back to base, could potentially even just walk back to lane and save this teleport for later on. Indeed, it looks like that's what Uzol's going to be doing. And this top lane matchup is sort of playing out through the early game as I was expecting. You get a bit of a push as a Camille. Once you have that sort of level 3 onto the Volibear, your full rotation of damage does a lot, but you kind of need these extended team fights to really get all of this healing through. Something that Camille doesn't mind either, because you will keep having that shield come up again and again in these longer team fights.
Right now, it's all quiet, you know? And we're seeing the junglers just pathing their way, you know? It's pretty standard. We're going to see Taxvig going down to that bot side. I do wonder if we see early Dragon priority as well. I believe, well, actually, I'm not sure if it's Hextech or Chemtech, because we don't have either the symbols there. So either way, one of them is amazing, one of them is not so much. We could maybe get a little look at that one, but either way, I do wonder if Taxvig wants to kind of put that pressure on, because one thing I will say Chaos is really, really solid at, that I think that Garden Gaming may have a little bit of hindrance with, is the notion of the team fight, right? I think that the Chaos team fight, the front to back, is really solid, and if they do force Garden Gaming around some of these Dragon fights, I think they could really build up quite a lot of a win position.
How much are Garden Gaming going to take these bad team fights? It's something I've been so impressed with for this team, is that they often don't take terrible team fights. They're not down to scrap in all situations, even when their composition, you know, seems like it should be just wanting to fight at all times. They're a lot calmer, they're a lot more collected in some of these team fights, and I wonder if they're going to be able to recognize that, you know, wait for a position where Uzol's pretty pressed forwards, taking towers, and then go for these engages, and make it so there's always a calculation going on in Chaos's head. Can we actually go for this play, or are we going to lose out onto it? Now, you called to talk about which Drake it was. It is going to be the Hextech Drake. It's one of the best, probably the best, as an individual Drake for you to be able to pick up, and it looks like it's going to go over nice and easily to Chaos. The easy trade is always going to be getting all 3 of the grubs. Despite the fact that Nihui is in the area, he's really not going to be able to step up and go for that one, and it's just going to be this very standard Season 14 trade, right?
Yeah, rotating Ermin up as well just solidifies it even more. Obviously, Nihui would be trolling, I guess, if he did decide to go for that one. So I respect that he just decided, nah, it's not worth it. We're just going to leave it. We're going to give them that one over, and we'll see what happens in the next rotation. But Dragon for Herald, Dragon for Grubs, not going to be too dissimilar to what people are used to, right? It is the expectation. And I think with the setup of the team, as kind of talked about earlier, it does make a lot of sense. But moving into kind of this mid game, I am starting to think like there is going to be that power curve for the Corki. I do feel like Swidley will probably get a little bit stronger than Kovacs in that mid stage, as we are seeing actually Rutsu gonna go for the gank here. So Kovacs with a lot of assistance could potentially make something happen. Repping over the top isn't going to do enough damage, but Garden Gaming are being punished if they do overstep.
Yeah, Rutsu there had to flash away. I mean, it was going to be a death if you got caught by the hook. But still, you managed to get the flash off of this Corki. Corki also does not have the teleport available at this point either. And you also don't have that ultimate now onto the Cartha, so quite a lot of blown for not so much going over. I think more than anything right now, Kovacs is just going to be trying to even up in the slight CS deficit that they were in. Maybe might be able to get themselves a turret plate as well. So it is good overall for Chaos' mid laner, but still, things 7.5 minutes into the game, no first blood. It's been very calm, very quiet so far. A few little bursts of action, but nothing too much happening. I'm really fascinated to see where we end up getting our first blood. Now, for the bot laners, once they all have the level 6, you know, specifically that ultimate onto the Leona, that's a real kill lane potentially, and I wouldn't be surprised to see these junglers who are hanging around in the area try to go for a gank here.
Yeah, I am surprised it's been so quiet, to be honest. I would have thought there would have been some early blood, especially in this bot side, which we actually might finally see now as Loki is there, does drop the Glacial Prison straight on to Rutsu, who is taking quite a bit of damage from the Kaisar already, tries to get away as the stun does land, but Loki is so tanky right now. Killer Instinct going to be utilized. That's going to be first blood to the Kaisar. A nice pick up as we do see Tatsuik also trading back. It's a 1-for-1. Both supports going to go down, and Garden Gaming sparking off the first trade of the game.
Yeah, it is going to be 1-for-1, but you're going to be perfectly happy with that one. Giving over the Karthus a kill, not going to be ideal, but you want to get your Kai'Sa going as early as possible. As soon as she can get to that 2-item point, that's when you can really begin to pop off in this lane. The Ashe going to need a little bit longer to really begin to auto-attack as quickly and crit as much as she's really looking to do. And it is going to be that static shift already completed. That's a huge upgrade in the bottom lane. And Miku and Ermin, they could look to keep getting aggressive down here. Do everything that they can to just try to keep the pressure up. Maybe bring Loki down again. And we called it right. Bot lane looked like the juiciest lane. And as soon as these supports looked like they were in a good position to go in, even without those ultis, they just pulled the trigger immediately.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's two engaged supports with a Kaisar who wants to dive in, but also the Ashe who's really good at setting up. So surely we had to get a fight sooner or later. You know, it would have been absolutely insane if we didn't get something when that level 6 did hit. But we are rewarded with that. As on the top side, I'm also surprised that we're not seeing a little bit more presence maybe from Loki as well, because I feel like getting Uzo ahead here could be a massive win, as right now it is actually going to be Tatsuik that gets there first. Nihui chasing Uzo underneath that tower, but did use not Call of the Fortune, oh my days, Stormbringer, which obviously
God,
is going to be a pretty big cooldown.
Offended by that if you call it his ult.
Hey, what the hell, bro? Like, you're getting me too mixed up with my brother? What's going on here, brother? As right now, Uzo is going to get aggressive, though. Nihui in trouble, but does manage to avoid the stun, but will not avoid it for long. Permafrost, and it will be an easy kill for Uzo. So, what I expected to happen a little bit earlier, now finally happens, in time for the Grubbies to start spawning as well.
Yeah, it's going to unlock this second set of grubs potentially for Garden Gaming. You don't have the teleport back. It's a really unfortunate timing. Uzo caught out here is always going to have that wall dive to get away, and the timing is just, it's really rough. They're going to dive Tatsuik. Tatsuik has no mana at all.
They're not going to dive, but they were looking for setup, and actually, had Ermin been there a second earlier, maybe it could have come off really nicely, but instead, Tatsuik will be able to stay safe, will be able to slip back into their jungle, as we are going to see the trade for those grubs there. So the grubs will be picked up pretty nicely. That's going to give a huge advantage to Garden Gaming, especially in the split push. But as we talked about, it's a buff that matters only if you are winning. Right now, we are seeing Chaos also trading for a couple of plates in the bot side. So I think the investment does pay off, maybe a little bit equal. Obviously, to see how that one works out later. But Dragon really on my mind block, sir, because this is where we could start to see a bit of pressure applied back by Chaos.
Yeah, if you could pick up the second Drake right here, it puts you in such a good position to is that control the tempo of the game, right? You're in a much nicer spot to be able to say, hey, we want to fight for this next one. Maybe we don't. We don't always have to go for the next Drake. Giving over one at this point would be fine. But if you do pick up your third and you're now all of a sudden on sole point, it puts a ton of pressure on your opposition. And we can see a hard commit right here out of Chaos. We're going to teleport members in, go for this Drake. It's going to be picked up relatively easily, especially with Ermin low. You're not going to be looking to get aggressive right here. 2 Drakes under the belt. Let's see what the soul is as well, because this could also dictate how this game goes. Now, Ocean, it's not the ideal. You know, there were some better options potentially, but still, there's a couple tanky members who would very much benefit from being able to heal a lot more during these extended team fights potentially.
But are they going to get it? You know, I feel like there's so much speculation about like how it will play out, and it's like, okay, yeah, good extended team fight, but if you're gonna get it, is another completely different question, right? And I will say, so far the game has started off slow, right? I'm not surprised that we're getting that from Garden Gaming, because I do think that they've kind of moved into this motto of like, we're going to pick our opportunities wisely, we're not going to overextend. And I feel like Chaos have almost taken that mentality as well, as we're seeing quite a formulaic play around the Rift. 2 Dragons traded for the Grubs. We're seeing a couple of plays here and there around the top and bot side, but all in all, no real crazy oversteps, no real aggressive plays, no trying to force errors out of one of the sides of the teams until now. You know, I feel like anytime we mention this kind of stuff, it happens, as Loki trying to steal away the blue buff here. Taxvic is still in the vicinity, but will take it, actually lay waste to steal it back. And you know what, that's a little bit sad for Garden Gaming.
It is. Loki didn't have the smite right there, so wasn't going to be able to take that one away. Feels good for Taxfig to pick up the blue buff, especially. I mean, you're a Karthus, you're pretty mana hungry. We saw earlier on, sat under that tower without any mana and could potentially have lost his life for it. I think you're absolutely right with the way that Garden Gaming like to play. I think a great show of that is the fact that it's 100% kill participation right now for Loki. They don't have the jungler around, but they don't feel like they're going quite as aggressive, you know? There's good trades back, of course. We're seeing Ozol potentially try for a 1v1 here.
Oh!
Squidly just gets taken out. That's unfortunate. Good gank out of
I think it was an Ash Arrow.
Oh, it was an Ash Arrow. It wasn't Taxfig at all. Yeah, you're right.
Very nice plays, you know, and I agree with you. It does feel like the jungle is setting it all up. I think that both teams are just playing for that setup, as you said, right? It just makes it easier, not taking any risks, as we are now going to see a little bit of a risk here as the dive in the top side is going to occur, but it's just way too much damage coming out from the 2 of the top side there. Uzol and Loki just obliterating through the health bar of Nihui, and that Camille is starting to become a little bit problematic. We talked about it earlier, about Certified picking the immobile Ashe.
Yeah.
That could become a bit scary if this Camille keeps getting stronger.
Most definitely could. We're going to see a bit of an engagement right here. Taxvic is stealing away the blue buff. Going to be here for the fight, though.
Certified was taking quite a bit of damage from the tower, and now Ekel in trouble, getting stunned up here, slowed down, rooted in, and will be picked off as well. Chaos living on a tiny slither, but may not be alone. Squidly turns up 1 bomb to kill 2 stones, or whatever the expression goes, as Taxvic now trying to run away, but it may not be enough. Squidly, 1 more rocket would do it for the missile barrage. Did not want to risk it because Kovacs was in the vicinity.
Wow, I mean, great play out of Squidly to be able to pick up those 2 kills, salvage what was a pretty devastating situation in the bot lane. Would have been really nice to have picked up another one of those kills, though. While all that's happening, Loki's also picking up this objective, and it does, again, feel like it's really playing through this jungler right now. Obviously, Squidly has to go react to that bot lane play, but it feels like unless you have Loki in the vicinity, Garden Gaming, they don't want to be the proactive team in this matchup. While Chaos, they are more than happy to go get aggressive. We saw it in the bot lane, and to be honest, I've been very impressed with this Karthus performance so far. Taxvic has been the aggressor in a lot of these situations, and we were talking about it in draft, right? Is the Karthus just going to sit there, not really do anything, or does he want to be proactive? It's definitely been the second option.
And I hope that we do start to see a little bit of the relaxing for Garden Gaming. You know, I want them to stop playing just around the jungler, because especially if we are starting to see them go for a split push, right, Uzol can become very, very menacing and can definitely take on plays themselves. And we saw it yesterday, and it became such a big problem to deal with. The Garden Gaming were able to take so much for free. So I do want them to kind of have that little bit of, I guess, maybe risk, or maybe, I don't know, maybe just boldness is the real answer that I'm looking for here. Just to kind of send it a little bit to say, yeah, we most likely are going to win this. Let's just kind of push the button.
I think part of it may be, sure, you want to set up your plays, but you could set up more plays, right? Even if you want to make sure everything that you do has a lot of thought behind it, you can just do that a little bit more frequently. Whereas Loki has only gone for a couple of ganks so far this game. They've all been effective, they've all worked out very well for him. But just do a couple more, you know, you don't have to try to boat race out a Karthus, you're gonna lose anyway. Look at the CS gap right now. So might as well try to get more of your lanes ahead with kill gold and stuff like that.
And I do like this from Garden Gaming, though. They said, you know what? We want to contest with this dragon, but we don't have the priority. We're going to go to the dragon, the tower instead. They get the tower, but now it comes down Chaos. They're swarming through. They've already picked up one, but it's a 1-for-1 so far. Certified does go down, but they're going to find Mikkel as well. The bot lane has been removed as Uzo is running away from the bear, who cannot catch up to Camille, but has done their job, warded away the assassin, and kept their mid laner and jungler alive. So Chaos in a really good position to go for this Drake. This will set them up onto Soul Point. And Ocean Soul for a couple of these members is absolutely massive. Let's just think about it on Volibear.
Yeah, I mean, Volibear is one of the best users of an Ocean Soul. We saw in that fight, was just chasing the Camille around constantly. And it was a... Are they going to go for it? I mean, I guess there's low health bars.
Oh, no Zenith Blade available right now. Loki going to have to just play the defender here, trying to just block out anyone getting through. And now with the slow, actually, this is enough. Uzo picks up one kill in the return. And although not a massive win, still something better than nothing.
Yeah, you're going to be happy enough with the way that this play has worked out overall. Also, dropping this arrow. You managed to get the mid lane tier 1 earlier on. Now you're going to get this inner turret as well, most likely. And you don't have a lot of your best members. TP into the backline, though, from the Volibear.
Oh, double TP as well. Turbat's going to be joining the fight too. They're not going to push for it, though. Garden Gaming happy to walk away from this. They don't want to get caught out. So we'll just leave the vicinity, but still applying pressure. So Garden Gaming, you know, they're still in it. They're still scrapping. They're actually up 3k gold, we have to remember. But I do wonder how it starts to get in 4 minutes, because they have to fight. They have to fight, Bloxer.
Yeah, you can't just keep stepping back. It was a really interesting play around the mid lane, where Uzo went full all in for that tower. It was like, we are not leaving without this tower. It's what got him split away and just getting chased around by the Volibear in that fight. And if you have the Camille playing with you a little bit more, I think that fight gets a little bit easier. But you're right, they are playing quite defensively. They're going to have to step up at some point, and they have the kind of composition that can do that. You've got the ults from both the Nautilus and the Sejuani that are very good at getting picks onto people, especially the Nautilus ult. It's point and click. You could just pop it onto Certified if you get close enough, and that's going to be a relatively easy kill to pick up onto an immobile Ashe. So they have the tools to be proactive. It's about who wants to pull the trigger. If it's just low-key again and again and again, it worries me a little bit. I think Uzo also has a little bit of aggression in him at the moment, and I want to see that come out even more. I think this Camille's in a great spot, 2 items completed. If you manage to get on top of some of these carries, you can just destroy them.
And also, one thing I feel like we're seeing a lot today that we didn't see yesterday is playing around Mikkel. I feel like at the moment we're playing a lot around Uzo, Squidly kind of getting set up for, but at the same time I feel like they're not playing for Mikkel's damage, which admittedly is going to be quite high. It's going to ramp up a lot, and I think if they do get a little bit of support in these fights, they could absolutely obliterate through Chaos. So it definitely is an interesting switch up, whereas yesterday they were playing the Xayah, they basically got all of the plays around them, and essentially it was just an easy team fight every single time.
It's a very different playstyle, right, between the Xayah and the Kai'Sa. We see the Kai'Sa get jumped a lot at the moment. There's a lot of Kaisas running for their lives during team fights, and she is relatively easy to catch. Obviously, with the upgrade onto the E, it's a little bit harder to catch up to her. Getting that invisibility is huge for your ability to actually play through these team fights. But it's... Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on.
We're in trouble here. Will be able to buy a little bit of space, but it's not enough. Hookshot easily picks up that kill, and that should be more pressure onto the tier 2. The wave isn't there, so will be a little bit of time needed, as Chaos could potentially start rotating. But I do like this from Garden Gaming. Even though they're not necessarily pulling the trigger aggressively, they are starting to set up. They are going in that 1-3-1 situation. They're setting the waves up nicely. They're pushing them all in and keeping that pressure high on Chaos.
Yeah, they just have to keep the pressure up. Kerbax could potentially be the next one under threat.
Ooh, Hextech Ultimatum gonna lock him down. Will knock the Camille out, but with the Permafrost, it may not be enough. The jump does not come back up again, and Uzo finding another target with the assistance of Loki.
And it really is Loki being the proactive one in this game right now. is a part of almost all of the kills. Only 3 kills that he hasn't been a part of in some way, and I love that they're all assists. It's kind of the perfect way to play this out as the Sejuani. It's very difficult to not pick up kills at some point, but being able to give all of them over to your carries, neither the Sejuani nor the Nautilus having any kills in this game just feels so good for Garden Gaming. They're getting the gold exactly where they want it, and with these 2 sort of more defensive help out your team items completed, I just think that this has been a very impressive game so far out of Loki. I wish more teams were going towards a slightly tanky Sejuani. I was saying it during draft, right? I think some compositions could really use a bit of stability, and that's certainly what Loki has been. I need to see them play well around this Drake, though. Not this Drake, this Baron, though. They're in a very good spot at the moment with the Camille constantly split pushing. It's causing a lot of pressure, but it can still be pretty tricky to make this Baron dance work out if you're not incredibly cohesive as a team.
Also, the Dragon though, because it is sole point, and that cannot be understated. Chaos do have the sweet advantage of the fact that we know Garden Gaming have to play for the Dragon unless they're willing just to concede the soul because they think they can basically just end the game. So they are forced to be on this point of the map at this time, which means that there is a little bit of an opening for Chaos to go for that Baron to try and play for another objective. But right now they are just saying we're going to go and slam it for this Drake. We want to 5v5 team fight you. We're done with getting picked off, and we'll see if they can make it happen. But so far already a little bit of poke has occurred from Squidly as the Ash Arrow not going to land onto Uzo, the very dangerous member of Garden Gaming, who is looking for those ADCs, and the poke coming out from Squidly has been massive already. Taxfig at half HP, they're going to give up the Drake, and it will be a successful take for GG.
Doesn't even look like they're going to be able to go fully for Baron here. They have pushed in the mid wave, which buys them a little bit of time, potentially going to set up a death brush. I mean, okay, spotted out. Mikkel knows that something's up. I think the whole team knew that stepping into that brush without checking it first would have been a very bad decision. And Chaos, they just lose out on the tempo of that game. I get why you turn and try to get onto Uzo. If you're able to pick off this Camille, it takes away so much of the advantage. But they weren't able to get on top of Uzo. Very slippery champion to try to lock down. Still had the flash available, so wasn't under the most threat. And on the side of that team fight was just constantly threatening onto the carries. Chaos had to respond to the Camille. They couldn't just ignore it on the side.
Yeah, well, they have to respond to the Camille now as well, as we are going to see the Requiem utilised. That will do a little bit of damage to Uzo, but nothing too worrisome. As Certified did take quite a bit of damage from the Void Seekers. Now they're going to try and turn their attention onto Squidly, who is able to walk away for a little bit longer. As Certified, I think, is only one Void Seeker away from death. Kovacs getting aggressive, but not going to be able to find the kill onto the Corki, and it's just opened up more and more spaces. Uzo is trading with Neepi. A massive amount of healing going to come back, but the Stormbringer had to be utilised to get to full safety, and now Chaos in the top side are in a really sticky situation here. Ermin able to get the lockdown with Loki onto Taxfig, and that is a goodbye to the Carthers into the more kills. They've taken out the Tristana as well, and Garden Gaming, they're just obliterating Chaos.
Yeah, they've played this one so slowly. It's only 11 kills to them, 6 to Chaos, but they've just had a stranglehold on the game, it feels like, the entire time. I'm so impressed with the way that Loki has been playing with Sejuani, the way that Uzo has been split pushing and just throwing the pressure, playing this Camille incredibly well, and it was a volley there pickup into the Camille. Like, he knew it was there, and it just feels like it hasn't worked out. It hasn't been effective in the way that they really would have hoped. Not on 3, which isn't necessarily the worst for a Volibear. You can still be effective in team fights, but because Ugosol's split pushing the whole time, you just don't get the Volibear into these big team fights where he can do a lot of damage. Sure, he heals a ton, but that's kind of the only thing that he has at the moment. And with Baron now on Garden Gaming, they're going to be looking to crack the base and possibly even end the game if they can find themselves a good team fight.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't maybe a bit more AP in the build, like a Rod of Ages. I think it's like the more standard build, but you know what? Maybe they wanted the tank stats to try and survive a little bit longer. However, Uzo obviously getting a lot of pressure from Loki has meant that they have kind of overcome any sort of tank stat stability. And they are now just forcing plays forward. Now, with this Baron picked up, I do wonder if Garden Gaming can just close out the game, because so far, it's been really hard to stop the split push, and there hasn't really been an answer at all from Chaos, and now that it's just going to be even more extremely felt because of the Baron buff. So at the moment, we are seeing the 3 members, 4 members, even 5 members in the bot lane here, crowding around for Uzo, and the arrow isn't going to land.
Uzo is going to have to flash to try to get away from the slow, but he's just allowed to walk this one out. And look at the damage that's been done across the rest of the base. Midwave being pushed in right now. You've got a Corki allowed to sit on a tower by himself bot lane.
Oh, the damage onto Nibi is crazy. They take a tower and force away the volley bear. They can just bring Uzo straight back in, and they've already got half HP on the mid tower. Garner Gaming have split open Chaos completely. As Sofa, it's going to go down. Rusu trying to get aggressive with it. Requiem over the top will be able to scare them away from the base, but they're just playing backwards. They can kite this one out, and look at the base blocks. The Camille's in there. The Corki's in there. They don't care about the team fight. They just want to take the objectives, and Nibi is trying to get the fight on. He's trying to take on the Corki, who has missteps, and they will be able to get the kill, but look at the damage. Uzo is in there, and he is getting it done. One kill already secured, and they're looking for more. Ermin to join the fight to chase them away, and Chaos do not have any answer to Garden Gaming at the moment.
I really don't. Uzo's also going to be able to base TP Baron in Powered recalls as well. This should just be the game. Going to go for another engage. Nuhui's just dead.
Oh, they're already taken down. Taxi going to die on the spot. Will be able to do a little bit of damage from death, but it's not going to be enough. No one left standing. Garden Gaming, it wasn't the most exciting game, but it was clinical, it was pristine, and they solidify another win in this league.
A summoner has disconnected.
I'm so very impressed with the way that Garden Gaming played that one. I mean, when you said they were a very clinical team, I was like, okay, but it's Div 2. You know, Div 2 clinical and top tier clinical are usually different. Nah, that game was very impressive. It didn't feel like anybody really stepped out of line. The bot lane got dove, which was not ideal. They could have recognized potentially that they were under threat, but I am nitpicking right now. That is me trying to find something very small to be like, oh yeah, that is an issue. Overall, that was a very clean game, and I'm so excited to watch this team continue to develop that style.
Yeah, they are looking like the up-and-coming danger for playoffs, because realistically, we've seen Unique, we've seen Rich Gang. They are really good, but they can falter. Lazy and Life are crazy, so I don't know if we're ever going to get stability out of them. We are just going to get fun games. But Garden Gaming, they are looking clinical. They are setting themselves up, and it's exactly what we want to see before we go into playoffs. They are now taking themselves to, I believe, third place, again joined with Lazy and Live, but I think maybe even closing in on Rich Gang. So it's definitely getting hot at the top, but I think that these two teams are kind of solidifying their own spot. For Chaos, though, it is down in the dumps. They are starting to get in those must-win positions if they want to try and get themselves to 6th position. So they do have to go back to the think back tank and get something else to come forward. However, we are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the final game of the day. Rusa, another team who needs to win, taking on 42 Gaming.
What I carry on my shoulders, showing stories told. Watch the fire stories told. Watch the fire burn away the cold. I am rising from the dust. Despite how much we lost, you will not take away my strength. You will not take away my strength. What I carry on my shoulders.
Hello, and we are back for the final game of today. Hopefully, no pauses, no problems, no issues, but we'll obviously have to keep a close eye on that one. It's going to be Ruza versus 42 Gaming, which is a very interesting game to me, right? I feel like 42 Gaming, they kind of had an interesting start to the split. We saw them win some very close games, some very crazy games as well. Essentially, them versus Lazy in Life has to be just the craziest game that you can witness in the whole matchup. But Rusa are also a very up and down team to me, right? We saw them play yesterday, and they just couldn't really get themselves over that halfway mark. They started off really well, but then it started to crumble. Now, I don't know if that's just because Lazy in Life are just wild to play against, or if it is just maybe like a little bit of that kind of moving forward momentum, right? They get a good early, and then they need to kind of transition into the mid. They've also had a couple of changes in the roster as well, Hyper being brought in too. So I do kind of wonder if at this late stage, maybe that's also affecting them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Bloxer, they ain't got much time left, right? They've got 4 games after this. If they want any sort of opportunity to try and go to the playoffs, they have to start picking up those wins, right? I think they realistically would need to win like 4 out of the next 5 games. And they do have some tough matchups coming up. So I feel like this is where they need to start off. They need to set a good precedent here and try and pick up the win against 42.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're in a situation where it's do or die at this point. They also had one of the craziest games I've ever watched against Rich Gang, so this team just doesn't have easy games, right? It just is constant.
And they beat Rich Gang.
Them. Yeah, they've had some wild times back and forth across the course of this split, and it's unfortunate that sometimes it feels like they're just getting things together, and then the next game you watch from them, it doesn't work. You're like, cool, I thought you had it, and all of a sudden you don't. I think that there's a chance that they could pull it together, but it's asking a lot for them to do it right now, because this is going to be a tough matchup. 42 are also kind of the kings of the crazy match. We've seen a lot of wild teams, but there's just something in all of these players that's just the psycho gene of like, hey, we're going to go in every single time there's an opportunity to. And you can see it reflected in a lot of the picks that we're seeing out of these guys too. I mean, Rexat pulled out one of the cleanest Pyke performances I think I've ever seen. I want to see something like that again from them, because I think the 42 genuinely look best when the game is a bit messy.
Very similar to Lazy in Life, you know, and maybe Ruza can kind of use yesterday as a bit of training for that. Like, you know, we had some chaos. Let's kind of get used to this. But the big thing I want to see from Ruza is, like, again, I feel like almost like it's 2 different teams sometimes, the mentality-wise, because the Ruza that played against Rich Gang were really clinical, really methodical, really well-tempered. And then yesterday, again, we saw that at the start of the game, but then when the game got really crazy and Lazy in Life were just making plays left and right, and they were on weird timings and they were appearing in different places, Bruiser kind of didn't have an answer to that. They weren't able to kind of bring themselves back in. In the late game, their team started to crumble. And yes, there were a couple of close fights. It wasn't an easy win for Lazy in Life by any chance. It definitely could have gone either way. But it felt like there was that kind of upper hand because Ruza weren't in their formula. And I do wonder if it's kind of if they do get knocked off the rails, can they get themselves back on track as the situation? But I'm excited. I do want to see some good things from them because I think at the moment right now, this is the closest Div 2 has ever been. I feel like every team could beat every team.
Yeah, we're looking at the bottom of the barrel right now, and it's a very nice looking team at certain points. We've had previous seasons where it's like, yeah, none of this is working. It's really unfortunate, but this team just doesn't seem to be able to find wins. Even in all 7 of their losses, it feels like Ruza have been at least competitive. And I think a lot of that comes from the way that they've been able to play around Anibot. Seems to be the kind of most aggressive of all of the players sometimes, which is interesting because coming into this split, Anibot was kind of known as sitting back quite a lot, not actually being a particularly aggressive player. Seems to have sort of come out of his shell a little bit. Him and Panda are sort of the way that this team has to play. Maybe a little bit out of Theodore. The bot lane doesn't seem to be able to quite fight, and that worries me a little bit because Chrissy and Rexa are, I think, one of our better bot lanes. Yeah,
no, Chrissy definitely a standout for me in the early weeks. I haven't seen loads of Ruza in more recent weeks, so maybe there's a couple of things that I'm missing. But yeah, Chrissy definitely someone that was on my radar from the get-go. Some really impressive Ezreal performances, and I do kind of wonder if that's going to continue because Ezreal is still strong. Chrissy is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, is there a way that they can maybe kind of manufacture it around that? So we'll have to see. We're going to go into draft, though. Let's bring this one underway. Let's see what the picks are going to be. Brand surely banned or picked. Which one will it be? So here we go. Vice, straight off the list there. Ruza are going to be playing on the blue side. And you know what? I do understand the Vi ban. It's not the most common or the highest priority in my mind. But against Balmeaf, why not?
Yeah, I mean, Balmeaf is really good on it. It likes those very aggressive junglers. Things like the Xin Zhao, the Jarvan are also strong at the moment and work quite well with his playstyle. The last time that I saw 42 as well, they had their sub Influentic in the mid lane, and it was a bit of a crazy matchup. I think he played Yone, and that sort of set the pace of the game that we were seeing out of 42. I think JJ's a little bit more reserved than Influentic, and that's saying a lot because JJ is also an incredibly aggressive player, and I can get why you're getting rid of both the Corki and the Tristana here. Giving over either of those pickups right there would be pretty terrifying onto the mid lane. There are still some of those really impactful AP junglers available though.
Yeah, and there also is the Lucian too. So I do wonder if Ruza are kind of setting up just to say we're going to play Lucian and then you have to pick something that isn't in the normal mid lane. But JJ plays Jace, so I feel like that's not really going to be too worrying for them as well. So it's definitely an interesting look at the start. Sejuani being locked in though, we saw it in the last game, very, very proactive. I think that you can't really go too far wrong with it.
No, and I think the Panda's pretty good on it as well. It gives you just, like you said, so much proactivity, a lot of safety as well. Even if you fall behind individually, you're still going to be useful. I'd like to see Panda get aggressive with it, try to play around that top and that mid lane if you can get them ahead. We'll obviously have to see how the draft shakes out to see which of these lanes are going to be most proactive. But I think in terms of safe first picks at the moment, absolutely fine. The only thing is the Lilia is very strong at the moment, as a lot of AP junglers are, and she's so incredibly annoying to deal with if you don't have some easy to land lockdown CC. Something like the Nautilus can ruin her day, so I'd be interested to see if that's a pickup potentially for Ruza.
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, now, you talked about this with Carvis, right, about sometimes in isolation picks look really good. One pick that is really good against Kayn, and maybe this has changed, please someone let me know if I am making a mistake here, but Kayn has always been quite good against the Lily, right? You can avoid the sleep, you can make big plays, you can be aggressive, you can match her in terms of tempo on farming. So I definitely wonder if there's like a world where, you know what, if we want to go a little bit crazy here, maybe throw something in the mixer, maybe that could be it, and then move the Sedge to the top lane.
Yeah, there is always that potential option, and we've seen Kayn's recently. We had a very bad Kayn game the other day, but I don't think that was necessarily the pick itself having a terrible day. I think the draft that it was in, it wasn't quite working out, so that is always a potential option. I'm interested to see that Zaya. You highlighted it in the previous game as something that can work. It takes a lot to sort of play around it. I think if you can grab the Rakan alongside it, it's very good. The Rakan's good at the moment, usually the better bit of this pairing. But, you know, you can kind of pair it with any of the aggressive engaged supports at the moment. The Leona's always going to be a good option. I'd be pretty surprised if we don't see the Nautilus here out of Rexat, but then again, Rexat likes pulling random stuff out sometimes.
I like the Leona though. I think Leona with the Zaya does go really well. It also sets up nicely with the Sejuani. It's a lot of CC. They're playing very back to front at the moment, and obviously with the looming threat of the Kai'Sa, it does make sense that you are kind of stacking that CC, stacking that potential to go in without having to commit too much forward, as the role is going to be picked up there as well. So a nice bit of engage locked in for 42 goes hand in hand nicely with the Lilia as well. Do wonder what they're going to decide to pair it up with though, because obviously they need a little bit more AD maybe coming up from that mid and top side.
Yeah, exactly, but you are losing quite a lot of these standard mid AD options already. So the Lucian is still available, could be a potential ban right here for Ruza. And I think it's also interesting what you said about the non-committal engage that you get out of a Sejuani Leona. The complete opposite, really, of what the Rel is. The Rel is full commit engage. Once you're in, it's very unlikely as a Rel that you're going to be able to get away. Maybe you could just about jump away, but, you know, you're very much full committing in. But the pairing alongside a Lilia between the Rel is huge. If you can get a big Magnet Storm off and land a big just bit of damage, any bit that tags on with the Lilia, then you can put everybody to sleep, and it just makes that combo work really well. Buys a lot of space too for the Kai'Sa, so I'm very interested to see that be the pickup. I was expecting the Nautilus. I think the Rel still works quite well in this composition.
Yeah, no, it does go well. I think that there's ways that you can play around it, right? I think that going with the full dive setup would go really well, so maybe they want to go for something aggressive, right? I'm surprised that the Yone is almost banned from 42, because I think it would have actually been something that worked really well. But obviously, it sets up the stage really well. I am surprised that we're not maybe seeing a ban of the Riven, right? I know the Hyper played it, maybe doesn't play it too much anymore, but it definitely does have a lot of potential if you want to play it with the Sejuani. So maybe we get a little bit of a special one today. But Jax and the Skarn are going to be banned away from the top side for Ruza. So now moving forward into the draft, the Twisted Fate. I actually would like this a lot because it does have the potential to go mid or top side.
Yeah, it gives you quite a lot of flexibility. I worry about it a little bit because if you don't get that first couple of ultis to work effectively, if they don't turn into kills, you can begin to fall behind a little bit. Don't do that. Okay, that's fine. That does mean it's Kai'Sa mid though.
Or is it Ezreal mid?
I'd be surprised if it's Ezreal mid, but I guess you really are just looking at what the opposition pick up for yourself. It is flexible either way. The Ezreal works better into the even more ranged matchups. If you've got yourself a range versus melee though, I think you'd rather have the Kai'Sa. She could do a lot more in the individual 1v1. And the thing about the Kai'Sa mid is when you could get yourself an isolated Acathian Rain, it does so much damage early. Hey, you highlighted it. You highlighted it.
I talked about it. I knew it was coming, you know, like it's in Hyper plays River, man. We don't get to see him play River that much. He played Renekton yesterday. He probably wasn't happy about it. He's like, you know, give me my champion, you know, the one that I play a lot. Lock it in with the Azir as well. I like the composition. You know, they've still got a lot of front to back with that Azir being locked in, but now they also have the threat of not only split push, but also the counter engage as well. The Riven could definitely go absolutely massive, but there is now the potential. Yeah, I was going to say there is the potential for the complete counter pick. The Poppy going to be locked in to give a very strong front line to 42, but also stopping engage options for Ruza. So quite an interesting way to play the game. I do feel like 42's game is a little bit more kind of spread out than necessarily it is for Ruza. I feel like Ruza have quite a compact composition. They can definitely play this very simply. Whereas 42 are going to have to do a little bit more, but you know what we said, they are the crazy team. They like to play a little bit sporadic, so the comp definitely matches.
It really does. This is the kind of composition that I expect out of 42. Every single champion here has some form of self-go button. They just want to go in, try to play this one as aggressively as possible, but I think you highlighted it. It's a very standard composition, even with the Riven right here for Ruza. I think it can play very easy front to back. Like you said, the split push could also come out. We saw in the previous game what a split push like that can really do to gameplay. It makes it so difficult to just do what you're looking to if you've constantly got a Riven in the sideline. And I think the Riven potentially has even more solo kill capability than the Camille does.
Oh, okay. I think yes in early.
Yeah.
Not so sure about
Later
in
on,
the
we got to
later
saw how
stages.
terrifying the Camille is. You are right, yeah. The caveat
Yeah.
is early on, but the Camille also likes to take the TP, whereas the Riven has the Ignite. You know, you're gonna, well, usually has the Ignite. I think actually took the TP, but, you know, can just get super aggressive early on.
Yeah, and I want to see it, right? Because, okay, well, I say I want to see it because that's what I want from most Rivens, but it is into the Poppy, which we do have to remember is just the most counter you can get from the Riven, right? I think maybe there could be some people that would be like, okay, Renekton actually a little bit more of a counter, right? Because obviously just a nightmare for Riven to deal with, but Poppy goes pretty crazy when it comes to playing into this matchup. So I definitely feel like Virtus thinking with their head, they knew what they were doing here. They saw the Riven. They were like, yeah, I already know what's going to happen. Almost an insta-lock as well on the pick. So it's definitely something they're comfortable with. Virtus obviously very good at those tanks as well. We've seen him play some Zac. We've seen him play some other tanks that have really just kind of decimated in those lanes. So definitely a very stable laner. And I do feel like unless Hyper has some real secret ideas of how to get ahead of this Poppy, it could be quite a miserable time until the mid game where the team fights start kicking off. And then the threat onto those ADCs could become a very real possibility.
Absolutely, but I do wonder if maybe you want to get Panda up into that top lane early on to try to give that initial kill over to the Riven. That kind of unlocks this lane a little bit more than previously. As a Lilia, you clear so quickly, you're really not interested in getting involved in ganks most of the time. It's always very interesting when you actually see a Lilia out of the jungle pre-level 6, and that unlocks a lot of time for Panda to try to be proactive, try to get involved. Obviously has a lot of lanes to potentially play around. The bot lane will also be pretty spicy. I don't know how much you're going to be able to lock down Chrissy, but Rexa is a potential option for the gank too. And so once again, I'm hoping for a proactive performance on this Sejuani. But yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Well, let's find out if it's proactive. Let's get into game. Final game of the day. Ruza taking on 42 Gaming. Who will pick up the win? Big time to shine moment. And at the same time, a lot on the line, you know. I have to say this, it is starting to get a little bit crunch time for Rusa. They need to start putting their foot forward, and what a way to do it. A little bit of an interesting draft here. I do wonder, are they going to play it slow? Are they going to play it aggressive? You know, do they play mid game? Do they send it? Well, right now, Hyper is getting aggressive with him. Tuso taking a lot of damage off of that first trade, and Hyper really happy. But I will say, I think Virtus can base and get their health back.
Yeah, it's not going to be the end of the world. If Virtus had to flash or something, that could really change the makeup of that lane. Plenty of time, though, to get the reset going on, although some fighting between these junglers. I'm surprised that Hyper didn't decide to try to play this one, didn't want to go in onto Valmy, because the Lilia is pretty squishy early on, could potentially be in a kill. Both of these top laners, though, are going to take a reset. They're both going to get back into lane a tad bit later than potentially they would have wanted, but no harm, no foul either way. Both junglers are starting towards the top side, though, going to be working their way down towards the bottom lane, and I think that's a lot more impactful to Panda right here, because you can really try to play around this Leona. It gives you such good setup for your ganks.
I do wonder if Balmath is going to maybe play second fiddle in the sense of he wants to kind of jump in a little bit later, go for those counter ganks, try and offset the plays with the damage that they can add. And if they're already sending a lot of that CC towards Chrissy or trying to lock up Rexa, then maybe they're free to kind of prance around and get off that DPS. So definitely interested to see how Balmath decides to play it, or maybe even an early potential gank onto the top side to really put the Riven into a tough situation. But we'll obviously have to keep eyes on that one pretty sharply, as I do like the fact that 42... they tried to get a ward in, but Rusa, they held them out. They only allowed for vision of the Lilia. No one really knows where the Sejuani starts.
Yeah, the Sejuani is a little bit of an unknown right now, and with Chrissy and Rexat putting a lot of pressure on down in the bottom lane, it does very much feel like this could be a gank opportunity. Obviously, with this wave crashing, it could well end up just bouncing back and keeping this lane in a bit more of an even state, but if the Sejuani can get into there, it could be a nice opportunity for a gank. I think we talked a lot about how this is a must-win situation for Rusa, and absolutely it is. But I think the same can be said right now for 42. It's not so much that they absolutely need a win to get themselves into playoffs. They're in an okay spot for playoffs, but if Chaos started picking up wins, they could always come under threat. But for seeding more than anything, I think they really need to pick up a win and get some real momentum underneath them.
I think that they're not secured yet. You know, I do think if 42 have a couple bad days, and Chaos have a couple good wins, well then you know what, it could definitely lead them out of playoffs. But I do agree with you, right? The seeding is going to be the more impactful thought process at the moment. And yes, you have to think about it. Lazy in Life and Garden Gaming, they're starting to climb away. So it is needing to pick up some wins here. Otherwise, it will be a bit of a tricky one for 42 come playoffs. However, back to this game. Bruiser, off to a pretty relaxed start. Nothing too crazy, which I guess works out for them. Scaling-wise, I think they do have the better late.
Yeah, I think they're going to be happy enough to get really far into this game. The Azir going to do so much. I don't think the scaling's bad on 42. This is not a massive scaling gap for either of these teams. There is a little bit of one as we are going to see a bit of a gank out of Balmi. Panda's here though.
Yeah, Panda should just be able to turn this one around. Balmi is going to get locked up and ignite over the top. Balmi in big trouble. First blood to Anibot almost on a plate. And I do get your point about the scaling factor of, okay, yeah, I think 42 will still be doing damage, but in terms of execution, I feel like Ruza have a much easier time in the late game, whereas 42 really going to have to handshake them quite.
I'm going to agree with 100% with you there, and giving over that initial kill to an Azir never feels good, right? Giving the kills to the scaling champion makes it feel a little bit risky, let's say, as we'll go later on into this game. Getting towards that first item as quickly as possible will be great for Anibot, and we highlighted them during the pre-game as a potential lane to really look towards. What can Anibot do? Because JJ has had some incredible performances and is on a bit of an interesting pick in the Kai'Sa, but we've seen Azir mid. Azir mid is always going to be stable, relatively safe to play, and if you can get ahead, can just wreck these team fights, and is a big part of what you're saying with it being an easy to execute composition.
Ooh, steadfast presence there, showing exactly why it's annoying to play Riven into the Poppy, and the damage trade, man. But Tuzo can just do so much. The Poppy pick, we've talked about it a couple of times actually in Div 2. It's just a ridiculous amount of AD that no one ever thinks about.
Yeah, you just feel like, oh, it's a Poppy, it's a tank. No, my friend. The Poppy does so much damage. That's why you've ended up with Panda being drawn up into this lane. Batuzo knows that this is happening, isn't going to be surprised by Panda in the slightest. So drawing the Sejuani up, they're going to unlock this Drake to be picked up relatively easily by 42. And because it's a Hex Tech, that's one of the premier Drakes to get as an individual. And it has stats that everybody's going to like. You love using your abilities more, right?
Yeah. Like, thinking about like players that are playing like, I don't know, people with like really like low CDs anyway, and they're just like, yeah, I don't like Hextech. You know, it's just like, it doesn't benefit me too much. But no, I definitely get what you mean. I think it's always going to be a strong pickup. It is sad that we're not going to get the Hextech Soul, you know, always will say that. It's probably one of my favorite ones to see on the board, but it does open up for the potential Infernal or the Mountain, which are also two of my favorites, as we are going to see the Ocean going to be the next Dragon. And we've kind of seen this dance in the last game, right? Grubs being traded for the Dragon. It's very standard. It's not too crazy, but talking about crazy, Hyper is going quite aggressive here. And we'll get a very heavy trade onto Vatuza.
Look at the item difference right now. A Thorn Shield and a Tear versus 4 Longswords. 4. That's so much AD right now onto Hyper that I'm not surprised these trades have suddenly flipped in the favor of the Ruza top laner. You're going to be very happy just to keep the pressure up right now. I'd be surprised if we see a dive, but I don't know, with the level of damage that Hyper can do right now, alongside Panda, maybe there's an option.
Yeah, but Tuzo does have the Keeper's Verdict. I think Panda's not going to get close enough. I think they will just walk Vertuzo away, which admittedly is a massive wave to lose it, right? This is a huge wave to be crashed and denied, so it is actually going to hurt Vertuzo a lot, but they are going to try and do the same to Exnom, who has been put to sleep. No way to...
wow.
Cleanses and flushes out! A huge play from Exnom to stay alive!
That's looked so calm and collected out of Exnom, like they knew exactly what they were going to be able to do. You also managed to get that ulti away from Balmi, so that's going to be big as well. And, I mean, they could just go in now.
No way do they go one further. No way do they go one step further and get the kill as well. Rexac going to flash away. Chrissy walking back, but now Exnom actually needs to be careful because Chrissy does a lot of damage. The missing shot's coming in.
Oh, hits!
In the turn! Oh, Chrissy with the magical feed, the magical aim as well, as Vatuzo will be traded in the top side. It's a 1-for-1 overall across the map, but what a play from both ADCs.
Yeah, Exnom makes a great play. Maybe that means they're feeling themselves a little bit too much. Get over aggressive. I thought it was a good engage to go for, but Chrissy just didn't get hit at all. Also had the cleanse flash available to them, just like Exnom did to get away from that dive. And speaking of dives, top lane also gonna fall. Hyper picking up the kill right there. And I mean, we highlighted what you could get. Oh my lord. Off of those 4 log swords, and it turns out what you could get is a Coalfield, attack Tiamat and another longsword with some boots. This is a just gap in the top lane right now. And sure, Pertuso's always going to be useful. We'll be talking about that a lot, the innate usefulness of some champions. But once you get ahead as a Riven, everyone's experienced it, right? It's just miserable to try to play against a fed Riven.
Yeah, and also, like, Hyper, the main champion is Riven, you know, like, it's not just a Riven, so it is definitely going to be quite dangerous. Balmy being chased down here, has had a bit of a tough time in the jungle so far, will go down once more, and right now, Ruza, they're looking good, but, okay, we saw them ahead yesterday, we need to see them keep this lead.
Yeah, can they play this one out? Because, I mean, Ruza, they just struggle so hard with the consistency. It feels like one of their greatest failings as a team, something obviously they're going to be working on a lot, and I really hope that they're going to be able to. Exnom potentially going to get Gove again every single time that we watch this Leona walk out of the lane. Feels like there's a lot of pressure right here onto Exnom, but they're in a good spot. They just need to stem the bleeding a little bit in the bot lane, keep things even elsewhere. Hyper could just keep playing out this signature Riven like you've been saying, and Pertuso, despite the fact that they have a bit of a counter, not just to the Riven, but to a lot of the pickups for Ruza right now, not having the best time in the individual lane. JJ!
Ooh, the knockback into the immediate knock up, and now into the CC chain again. The Glacial Prison locking down JJ, the tanking of the tower too. Panda just setting up a kill on the plate and actually will take the kill themselves. I don't think that was necessarily the plan, but Balmeep with the return will get the kill back, and this time Balmeep could be pretty happy to take that one up as Panda looking for another kill. Does not have the damage though. We'll just watch Lilia walk away.
All in potential right there. Oh, hang on, speaking.
Oh, we're here back again. Solar Flare over the
wow.
top. Chrissy taking so much damage. And Exnom, when they're finally able to let the feathers fly, can just rinse through these bot lane members. Rexat trying to survive, but will just be a final pickup as Exnom maybe wanted that kid instead.
Whoops, that's not going to be ideal. That's the sort of unfortunate thing about playing the Leona. It feels like she's a magnet for kills that she really did not want. Exnom, Malto, they're going to be more than happy with the way that that bot lane play works, and that was a gorgeous solar flare onto two members. It allows Exnom to just throw those feathers through. The piercing off of the Q as well is going to just help you shred through your opposition. And this is just a crazy game already. I mean, it's not quite a kill a minute, but the pace is high, and there's action all across the board. Exactly what we were expecting from Ruza and 42. As we're going to watch the fourth turret plate fall to Hyper. They've got themselves a massive advantage right now. 20 CS, a kill, all of these turret plates. If we could have a look at the gold at some point individually, I'd be very interested to see what the difference is. Thank you very much, production. Yeah, ouch in the top lane.
Yeah, because it was also quite a necessary kill in that bot side, because Exnom was falling behind Chrissy. The CS lead was matching that of what Hyper had over Vertuso, but now we can see a little bit of gold influx back onto that side. It has evened it out, and with the 6 potential grubbies as well, this Riven is looking even more dangerous.
Yeah, the 6 are gonna fall, and I mean, Ruza, that's a clean sweep of them. Gonna be very happy. Like you said, the Riven already shredding through the tower. Now you're gonna add all of those extra little void minions helping them out too. You've also got good tower pushing potential out of both your Xayah and your Azir, so the composition can make good use of these extra grubs, and it's a win more buff, and they're winning at the moment, so you're gonna be very happy to pick this one up. See Panda also stealing away. Camp could potentially look for a play over the wall right now. JJ does have flash though.
Yeah, Balmeep just really not able to get too much into the game at the moment, and I feel like this is what we talked about. If Hyper gets ahead, it's going to be a really tough time for Vertuso. Has managed to get ahead, has managed to be dangerous. A 2-level lead already accrued, and they're on their way to get the first tower when no one else is close. So right now, a massive show up on that top side. The domination is clear, and it is not slowing down soon.
Not just first tower, but all 5 of the plates too. Vertuso may be in trouble here. Panda just hovering over the wall. They have enough damage between them. Balmeep being here should dissuade this play.
From Hyper is going to put to sleep. Flashed, I don't know if he needed to flash away there. Was able to buy a little bit of space, but actually decides against it. And was able to get a little bit of damage back onto the Poppy, but all in all, I feel like the Riven is doing what they need. If Balmeep has to spend a lot of time on the top side, they can't keep that farming pressure. And Sejuani, Panda is not that far behind in the farm either. So at the moment, Balmeep hasn't ganked more, hasn't really built up that massive CS lead. So at the moment, it feels like Ruza are winning across the map in general.
Yeah, I was very interested to see right then with the resets coming through. if Hyper decided to go back towards the top lane, or if they actually wanted to go take a little bit of a swap, maybe make Exnom go up into this much safer lane where there isn't going to be all that threat coming through, and just try to absorb another tower into this Riven, keep her as far ahead as possible. Ravenous Hydra completed already. It's just going to be up into the top lane. Anibot taking a lot of damage from JJ right here. I did wonder if JJ maybe wanted to go all in. That's not going to be the case. And yeah, you do have Hyper continuing to push onto this top side. Now they're going to be pushing for a tier 2 tower though. That could potentially open them up for possible ganks from Balmy.
And I do wonder... Now, I'm kind of going off your point a little bit here, but JJ, I feel like hasn't been super active in the game. And I do wonder when this Kai'Sa is really going to start to become a threat, because at this moment in time, it feels like the map's kind of crumbling around and they don't really have a consistent point. And I feel like the ADC in the mid lane, there is Kai'Sa, isn't necessarily getting a lot more presence, because when I think about Kai'Sa, it's like, okay, you dive into the backline, you pick up a target, but I don't really see who JJ is going to kill.
Maybe Anibot, if they are, hang on, truly as psychopathic as I feel like JJ likes to play sometimes, but you're getting pulled so far back. You're absolutely right. There isn't that target that you're really looking to go into. You know, you love a squishy composition where the Kai'Sa can go flying into the backline, pick somebody up immediately, and then use that stealth off of the E to then get away. It's not gonna happen in this specific matchup, and yeah, it feels really bad for this Kai'Sa. I think there's a reason that we see her in the mid lane a lot less than we see a lot of the other ADCs. I think she gives you that much as a mid laner.
Damn, Hyper just out-trading the Poppy quite a lot there. And we're gonna have to see if this combo's gonna go together, because the more I think about it, Bluxer, the more I think the 42 had to get ahead, because their competition is just quite sporadic, right? They almost wanted to win every single matchup, and they haven't really managed to do so. And with that, they've also lost a lot of gold on the map. This is now going to be the second tier 2 tower taken, and it's netted a 3k gold lead across the rift.
It has. You've put yourself in a very good position to be able to win this game.
Wait, Hyper died. How did Hyper die?
I didn't see.
Did he Did he dive and just die? What's happening? Oh, hold on. The Sonic player going to catch out 4 members, and this is maybe how 42 get back into the game. They're going to go aggressive with it. Poppy looking to pick up the kill onto Panda. Virtuoso getting the slow down. Panda will go down. Bruiser have looked so controlling in this game and have just managed to lose it all to 42 in one moment.
Sigh. Jay, sigh. This is the issue right now with Ruza. Even when they get themselves big leads, I was about to say it before that fight started. I was like, they have such a big lead. I don't trust it yet, though, and for good reason. They haven't thrown everything away, but they have lost a big bit of the advantage that they really were looking for. 4-man solar flare usually means that you're going to win a team fight, but it was just sort of stopped the bleeding a little bit for Ruza, and they end up losing so much right now. They're not going to lose the Drake at least, so can potentially still look to fight around this one. But it seems like 42, they would love their soul point. They're not going to let this one go nice and easily.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm impressed or surprised. The reason I've gone straight back to it, I feel like 42 could have set themselves up to go for another play and just go for round 2, but instead it's not going to be a thing. Ruza will pick up this dragon. They will take the Drake, so stopping soul point for 42. It is Chemtech soul, which is not necessarily the most fought over dragon, but definitely better than losing it for free. So Ruza on the warpath for these dragons, have picked up one. Now will buy obviously a lot of time if we were looking for the win condition of the dragon soul.
Yeah. Absolutely not giving that one over is going to be crucial. I mean, if you give up that soul point already, it just puts so much pressure on you to keep the pace going. Something that I don't feel like Ruza deal with particularly well. You've got taking a lot of health right there off of JJ. JJ just doesn't feel like they've had a good time in most of these fights. And despite the fact you've got a couple of kills, it went onto the Ezra, it went onto the Lilia. Not bad places to have gotten the gold, but you're still a decent chunk behind, and this is going to be another tower falling right here. There's really no outer turrets left available, particularly at this point. You're kind of just trying to hold on to your tier 2s right now, and that's not a good position to be in just 70 minutes into the game.
A lot of tower takes have occurred. The 6 grubs really playing their part for Ruza here. The Cypher going back to that top side. A surprising death is one that we definitely have to mention. But all in all, has been able to stabilize a little bit back. Virtuoso, though, having a bit of a better time in this lane than when we first saw. And I think the pressure for me is all around those objectives. When Baron spawns, when we see more dragons kind of being pertinent in the game, that's when I really want to see Ruse's improvement, where they get more consistent. Because at the moment, it feels like they're doing really well when they're spread apart. They're doing really well in the early game, but I want to see that kind of culminate in that mid-game, late game.
Can they do it? Can they just keep up all of the pressure that they seem to get during the early stages? I mean, they're up by a decent chunk, right? I've been burned too many times by really that single issue, right? I think both of us have, where we've been like, oh, they're in such a good spot, and they just don't manage to do it. You even watched that happen yesterday, so I think we're not wrong to be a little bit cautious right now of this early aggression. TP going down bot lane, a lot of people around here, Panda. I don't think you want to walk into that bush.
I also don't really know what they're fighting for here. I'll be honest, like, there's nothing on the map. There's no dragon. Like, I don't really know what the fight is over. There's no tower either. So I don't know why both teams decided, you know what, we're just going to scrap it out. It was maybe a control ward.
I mean, these two teams are just the scrappers, right? There's a lot of them in Div 2 at the moment. I think Golden Gaming might be the only team I might possibly be able to call clean at this point. Even then, you know, they've had their moments occasionally, but these two definitely want to go brawl. They don't need objectives to play around. What's the point of fighting around an objective? Then you lose something if you lose the fight. We should just fight. Then we just lose kills if it goes wrong. I mean, I hope that's not the thought process out of these teams, but you never know at this point. I mean, we've hit a little bit of a lull period in this game too. You're kind of just waiting on the Baron spawning. 20 seconds time though. It's going to be here relatively soon, as I don't quite know who's hunting who right now.
Yeah, the Runes are playing quite aggressively here. I do like it though. I think that this is it, and the Sejuani can dish out quite a lot of damage, and JJ really hasn't shown any sort of potential to kill Anipot at this moment in time. So I do feel like there should be some comfort, but the Herald spawning and then getting freely destroyed, again, a little bit of a question mark play for me, as we do have a minute 25 before the Drake. I expect both teams to be setting up for it.
I think, unfortunately for these teams, especially Bruiser, there's a lot of big things that they need to work on, but there's also a lot of the little things too that just aren't quite working out. Not managing to pick up even a charge off of that Herald, not going to be ideal. Just missing out on a little bit of extra gold that you could have potentially had for yourself. And I think part of what worries me about this game having stalled out is the fact that Hyper got that massive advantage. I mean, he's up 40 CS, a kill still, got those 2 items completed, but hasn't been able to do too much with this lead. I think they really should have swapped Hyper down into the bottom lane to try to get another tower, because it doesn't feel like this bot lane has been able to get anything going in the same way that this Riven potentially could have.
Well, we may see Hyper rotating down to the Dragon, although it doesn't feel like that's going to be the play. 30 seconds before the Dragon is spawning, and 42 there getting some priority in the mid lane, pushing in that wave, getting more eyes on the Rusa team, and a bit of damage to match as well. The Mystic shot starting to hurt.
Really are, as you can just see why the Ezreal is such high priority. As you get yourself that Manamune and the Trinity Force, you can just chunk people out again and again and again. That also doing quite a lot. You are going to be able to heal it up, you know, not going to lose any of the objectives right now, but still, you can keep doing that. Although, this is a fascinating play. Both JJ and Bertuso are on the top side when this Drake has spawned. They're potentially going to look for a double TP, but they don't really have a good place to TP into.
Yeah, a lot of wards put down for Rusa. Also, there's definitely a nice one to see. There's a couple of wards available for 42, and again, quite a late decision to TP anyone if they are deciding to, but also either team that's interested in the Dragon, so maybe they just said, you know what, we don't even care about this objective, because actually 42 has sent 2 people up to the top side. They're looking to kill off Hyper here. A lot of damage is being done, but chasing a Riven is a tough time.
Yeah, Riven is so mobile, just going to be able to use all of those Qs to jump away, gets out of that, and also gets the Drake for the team, because there are so many members up towards the top side. It's not like you really even have any Baron threat at the moment, so a bit of questionable play out of 42. In return, they're going to lose a Drake. They're also going to lose this tier 2 tower in the bot side, and that's the first tier 2 to go down, so that's a massive injection of gold as well over to this Azir. Already has a Death Cap and a Nashor's completed. Is going to get that next item, you know, relatively soon, and that is a terrifying position to be in when you've got 3 items.
And they're forced to, they've double TP'd into the bot side. Vertuso getting aggressive. JJ will go
JJ's
more aggressive for Anibot, but Anibot is just walking away casually. Like, there's so much aggression from 42, but over what was a very easy to stop play. They could have just based earlier. And now Baron is the play. Like, I don't know, Messi from 42, and they're losing a lot for it.
Fully on vision is the only thing. So Balmith is in the area, does have the flash, can get over the back of the pit potentially. And they could go for a play here instead. Hyper is going to get aggressive upon. This is very risky for Ruza, but I think they're in a good spot to take this.
But it is a 4 versus 5. Ruza do have the man advantage, and yeah, they can burn through this Baron. There goes the steal!
Oh, stolen!
Balmeath gets the Baron. It was risky indeed, Bloxer, because they lose it.
Flash Lilia into the pit is always going to make it a bit of a 50-50, and this time it comes up 42. You lose a kill onto Balmeath, but that's it. Now you've given the Baron to your opposition, and this is such a Ruza 42 game right now. 42 making questionable, over-aggressive decisions all across the map, and Ruza making good plays and beginning to throw them away. This feels like parodies of these teams. Like, this is exactly what I would write if I was doing a script for this game. Somebody has to win this game, and at this point, despite the fact Ruza, I think, are still in control, it's like they don't want to win it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. They're 3k up, but they've been 3k up for ages. Like, it's not changed at all in the last few minutes. And I will say, yes, there's some really strong moments for Ruza, right? I think Anibot is very, very powerful at the moment. I think Hyper definitely can be dangerous if he can get onto targets, as the Solar Flare is going to be cleansed by the Ezreal there. Chrissy just able to keep such long range. It isn't really too threatened. But it is begging the question of, okay, now that Baron has been secured as well, it's just that extra level of difficulty that Ruza need to play into, and it's almost like running through sand.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe even quicksand at this point, you know, like, it feels like they just make it so much harder for themselves than these games have any right to be. It's a fantastic point that they've been 3k up for the last, 15 minutes? You expect gold leads to increase. This is the point of gold in this game, is to get you scaling further and further ahead. It's not a game where we can tie. Somebody has to win at the end, and part of that is getting yourself a big gold lead and using that to snowball. Not something Ruza have been able to do. Some credit to 42 for being able to stem the bleeding that was happening early on. And getting that steal of the Baron really feels like it puts them solidly back into this game. The scaling relatively even for both of these teams. Right now, it's all about what you can take from the other on the map. There's a lot of wards set up around this top lane tier 2 tower. But without a wave, it feels like you're just going to have to back off as Ruza. Potentially, another play that they're looking to get just fizzles out, yeah.
A slow game, ticking over. I feel like we're going to get one massive fight and it's just going to end, to be honest. That's my feeling towards this game. That's how it seems like it's heading. And to be fair, I'm not mad about it. This could be it. Right now, Rexac caught out, should be picked up. An easy secure for Ruza. But again, not really much they can take from it. A minute 20 before the Dragon, sorry, a minute 10. And it's still another 3 minutes before Baron. So again, a pickup that won't necessarily lead to anything.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, unless it does, actually. Maybe they do. JJ locked down there. Will buy a bit of time, though. Virtuoso able to knock away one of the members. Anibot not able to follow up with a lot of damage. So, tier 2 is picked up. Ruza do convert the kill into a tower, and now can start setting themselves up for the Dragon in 44 seconds.
Yeah, that was a pretty big fight. Even though nobody dies, you managed to get a lot of push, a lot of pressure onto 42, push them away, get yourself at least the fast track over to try to set up a little bit of vision around this bot lane, although actually they don't manage to put too much down. 42 definitely winning the vision war right now. Resets coming through, teleports available for both of these top laners, and some decent flank wards for Virtue, so if he can get into the back line, could really disrupt this fight.
Ruza set themselves up for this Dragon. I do think, again, they do have a lot of power. They should be able to win the 4v4 as long as they don't get poked out by Chrissy. JJ can't just dive straight onto maybe Anibot. I think they should be good. Dragon will be secured there. Third Drake picked up for Ruza, and now they just need to walk out. 42 going to be able to pick up the Leona on the way out.
I'm surprised that Malto decided to flash right there. I think they were going to be dead either way. Somebody probably could have jumped over the wall and kept that fight going. Either way, picking up the Drake and conceding just your support. I'm sorry, supports, but it's going to be a good trade. Also, picking up a mid lane tier 1. 42 finally getting a bit of actual pressure onto the map. They finally managed to get all of these outer tier 1 towers. Something that, you know, Ruza had done 20 minutes ago at this point. They've had a really accelerated game, but they've been stalling out a little bit. Still, 3 Chemcheck Drakes, a 4 Chemcheck Drake sold. I mean, I guess that's pretty good, right? It's not the best, but it still is going to be something, another potential win condition to try to play around. But, oh boy. Oh no.
Yeah, hopefully it's not a long pause. Hopefully we have a little bit of info on that one. I will say, at this moment in time, though, I feel like 42 have been able to stall out in some pretty crazy ways sometimes. Definitely not the most clinical or advised ways, but I do agree with you what you said earlier about kind of rotating Hyper around. I feel like the game plan so far has been, okay, get Hyper ahead, let him just do his thing. We'll play the game 4v4 and you play the 1v1. But it hasn't really led to anything. Like, yes, okay, the farm lead is still growing. He's 80 CS up, but the tower hasn't been taken. There's been no further kills on the Poppy. Vertuzo is scaling. Happy to be a tank as we are going to go back into game. And I feel like the rest of the team has been having like hit and miss moments. You know, it's a very hot and cold situation where sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. We've lost the Baron, but then we've picked up Drakes. And all in all, it feels like the kind of game plan, they're kind of sticking to it. They're not willing to alter what they're doing, but it's not necessarily netting them the best plays until now, where they put Anibot onto the top side.
Yeah, finally things are actually going to properly rotate around. In the previous game, we got to see just how strong Uzol was on the Camille, able to rotate and split push across the whole map, but sometimes even pushing through the mid lane, then would head top, head bot, was all over the place, whereas this has been very rigid of Ruza. They haven't really moved Hyper around. They finally do, like you said. This could be huge for them to actually try to get something done elsewhere. And I think a big part of why the game plan hasn't worked out like you really would have wanted is because Poppy is one of the best stalling champions. You know, there's some champions in the game whose whole job is just to say no to all of your plays, and Poppy is one of the best at that.
Next Baron going to be spawning very shortly, 20 seconds on the clock. 42 in a good position for it. Hyper still pushing the side wave, but it's going to be once again met by Vertuzo, who is sliding in. And actually, Hyper is getting quite a lot of damage onto the tower, should be able to take this one, and that will potentially open up the inhib. So finally, the split push play has worked out for Ruza. But can they capitalize on it? They have rotated 42 off of Baron, but it looks like there could be a potential pick in the mid lane as Panda is getting a bit of damage down onto Rexat. Good dodge on the Swell Seed. That could have maybe left. Okay. We're gonna skip past that.
Yeah, no, fair enough, fair enough. It's going to be a bit of a Baron setup right now. Ruza, they've got the fast track into the Baron. Obviously, blue side always does, but they've also got a good amount of vision set up as well. Good pressure going on in the top side and in the bot lane right now. It's only the mid wave they don't really have full pressure on. The Hyper, once again, just going to ignore Vertuzo, try to take down this inhibitor. Not quite going to be able to take it 100-0 on this push, but should be able to do so on the next wave, potentially, as everybody continues to posture around this Drake. Anibot, without flash as well, this was bad.
This is a really tough situation. A lot of CC, a lot of damage over the top. Anibot will be cleaned off of the map, and this is a really unfortunate timing for them to lose someone. The double sleep coming through as well. Headstorm will not go to sleep, but Rexat is now going to be able to get the lockdown onto Panda. Panda going to fall very low, will be picked up, and Headstorm is able to make a beautiful play with the feathers. Buys so much time, but Balmy is ticking them down. Chrissy gets aggressive, and here comes Hypers, gets stopped from TPing away. No Riven to the party. Yes, the inhib was picked up, but is there a world where Baron can be taken?
I feel like 2 members, you're going to take it very slowly still. Gonna try it, and despite the fact you have quite low health bars, you do a lot of damage between these two. Balmy slightly low. This one is going to be picked up though right here for 42, and what a messy set of fights. Honestly, we wanted to ignore the fact figuring the misplay of the flash, but it costs Anibot their life right there. They got the 2-man pushback off of the ulti with a flash as well. You're going to be able to play this one much easier, and this is now the second Baron going over to 42. They're still not in a gold lead in this game, but it really feels like they are in control.
Yeah, but it is now essentially 0, right? 300 gold lead to Ruza. It was 10 times more when we last talked about it, but 42, they are starting to find these team fights, right? They were able to find a pick, they were able to find a hole in Ruza's game plan, and they were able to utilize it. Now you could say, okay, look, Ruza, they have traded it for the inhib in the top side, but again, we're going back to the situation of Hyper versus Vertuzo that is just kind of a dead end, to be honest. It's a very slow grind, and I feel like the rest of the team from 42 can do a lot more around the map than just this one side of the play.
mid lane.
Although mid,
Spicy.
it's going down. Ooh, okay. I saw a lot of bodies getting very close together. I thought 42 were about to get real aggressive in that mid lane.
They could well have done. I mean, 42, they are in the best position they've been in all game long. They lost the bot lane inhibitor, so they do have a little bit of pressure in the bot lane, but it's not getting there yet. 42, they're going to look to pick themselves up this trade. Not going to be much of a contest out of Ruza, and that's now 3 for 3, so the next trade is going to be huge, and we're only potentially 10 or so minutes away from this being an Elder Drake. This game's gone a lot longer than it potentially should have done. Ruza had such a strong position early on, and I think at some point you've got to ask, weird TP out of JJ, but it's fine, wanted to defend this tower. At some point you've got to ask about the mentality right out of Ruza, because they lost a game they were in control of yesterday, and at what point do you start going, oh no, it's happening again, and maybe that affects the way you're playing the game.
Okay, I hear that. I guess only the players would know though, so I'm not going to speculate too much on it. But Ruta at the moment, they are still in a position to win it, right? And I think this is something that we said earlier, and I think something that I don't want to be kind of forgotten about this team is that Ruta have got really good positions in these games where they were very close to winning. I don't think they've really had many just absolute wipes where they've lost. It often has been a very close game, not too dissimilar to this. And it is just kind of that last little bit to take them over the line, and maybe they can find it, because right now there's a fight in that mid-section of the map.
Oh, huge!
From the Azir is huge. Anibot may have found what they needed. Valmeep in an awful position will be taken down, and the last two have to run for the hills. Ruza now in a really dominant position here. 4 members alive versus the last 3, although it might be 3v3 because Hyper is getting surged on by JJ. Okay, 3 versus 3. The base is the site for the next fight.
Let's see what 42 can do to stall this game out. Really questionable decision right there out of Hyper to go all in. Without the 4v3, you can't continue pushing this one through. Still though, great solar flare set that fight up, and then Anibot, beautiful play. You know, has been looking the whole game for that big Emperor's Divide, finally finds it onto 3 members. They all get blown up without having that without having that Zhonya's available on Balbu. That would have been 3 kills going down much quicker. I mean, Xnom just like all of the feathers down right on top of everybody who'd been pushed together by that Azero. It was a gorgeously executed fight. I think that's part of what you love with the Ruza composition, is that it just takes one fight where it all comes together and you just win it.
And that's all it takes. It's just one good fight, but it wasn't that fight. Okay, they won the fight. They look aggressive, they look in a good spot, but again, a small mistake, a small over-aggression leads to them going back to the drawing board and now having to find another opening. And this opening is going to be pretty interesting, because I imagine at 2 minutes, Bloxer, we get a whole load of dancing, because Dragon and Baron will be on at the same time.
I mean, what do you want to go for? Soul for either of these teams, right? Third Baron for 42, and they've still not cracked any of the tier 2 towers. First Baron for Ruza could be what they need, the key to finally unlock this game. About 10 minutes ago, if they'd have picked up that Baron, hang on,
Exnom in trouble, Exnom in trouble. Gonna have to go into the skies, but does not
dead.
get to land. And now it's actually Ruza in an awful position. 2 members dead in the mid lane. The TP, Hyper, where are you going? Where are you going, Hyper? Hyper's potentially going to go for the backdoor play, but look at the rest of the team. 42 are just running it down mid. They're going to go for the end here. It's only Azir and Sejuani that are back in the base, and look who's in the base of 42, Bertuzzo. So I don't think they're going to go further. Anibal being chased down by JJ and Valmeep. They're put to sleep. They're going to wake up with a bad headache because they're gone down to the base, and Panda now in trouble as well. Hyper has to come back because 42 could maybe end the game here.
I mean, it was an interesting decision. I think they're going to get their recall stopped as well, potentially. Bertuzzo, not going to be able to get there. Oh, he stops it! It's done! It's done!
Stun! Now it's awful! The 5 seconds on Epsilon, but it's not enough time! The base is being destroyed, Boxer, and 42 has somehow won this game!
Oh, no. Oh, Jay. Oh, no. It happened again. And, that feels so unbelievably bad. After you just win a great fight, you actually get your composition working, everybody does their job, and then you just get caught slightly out of position. And I don't even think that Xnom was massively out of position, but just didn't
Yeah.
have the defensive tools to get away.
And I guess it's the sentiment of this is what we talk about with these teams being willing to fight off objectives. There was no gain to be had realistically.
Yeah.
Had they maybe only just got one pick, there wouldn't have really been too much. They got both, so you could say, okay, well, they did win the game off of that. Yes.
Yeah.
But realistically, it could have been played a lot safer from Russo. They didn't have to be up aggressive. There wasn't anything they were really protecting. So I do feel like there was just a bit of an overstep, a bit of an oversight from both teams, really, because it could have gone the other way, and 42 may be in a bit of trouble there. So it's a sentiment for me where, like, yeah, a few question marks on that game indeed. I don't think either team will go away from that being like super happy about it, but a win is a win. 42 Gaming, they're going to be going up the table. You know, that's now going to be 6-6 or 5-5 for them. They will be going 5-5, so still setting themselves up for playoffs. Rusa down the table once more, now in a really, really difficult situation of whether they could even get into playoffs. So definitely a lot of question marks there, definitely a lot of answers needed as they're going to be playing next week. But that is going to be all from us, Bloxer. That is our games. What do you make of it? Obviously, you had a game where I wasn't here. Any final words for you before we end the stream?
On that game specifically, that was a very 42 versus Rusa game, and I think that
Yeah.
was quite possibly the most Rusa way for them to have lost a game. Really unfortunate that. On the day overall, super interesting. I think Garden
Yeah.
Gaming potentially looking like our best team right now. Fascinating. The Rich Gang also end up losing after their win yesterday against Unique. This is, I think you said it earlier, the most competitive I think Div 2 has been for a while, and it's so fascinating to see.
Yeah, it is hard to predict. It is hard to know who will win, but there's only one way to find out is to stay tuned. We're going to send this one off. Shout out to our producer, Vodka. He's had a lot to deal with over the last 2 days, and we finally managed to get through it. So with that being said, that has been us. We will be back next week for more NLC action. It's going to be week 6 soon. There's not much time left. Stay tuned.